Impossible. The eunuch's voice had barely faded when I felt as though a basin of icy water had been poured over my head. Perhaps the blazing midsummer sun had made my limbs go weak. No, that was not it. My bewildered gaze moved from the eunuch to my father, as I stubbornly waited for someone to correct the imperial decree in the next breath. But the decree was returned to its brocade box. The eunuch left Chen Manor, and everyone rose in delight. I clutched the arm of my maid, Hong Yu. My body swayed so badly that I could hardly remain standing. Yet I did not dare collapse. Madame Chen, the mistress of the household, was beside herself with joy. Before my legitimate elder sister, Chen Linlong, had even regained her balance, Madame Chen pulled her into a tight embrace. My daughter, I truly am blessed because of you. The Li family has been prominent and noble for generations, and young General Li is handsome and extraordinary. To think such a wonderful marriage has fallen to my own daughter. Of course it was an excellent marriage. My father was merely the head of Wenyuan Academy. Although he was profoundly learned, he held no government office. In the capital, where one could casually throw a brick and strike a fifth-rank official, his standing was hardly worth mentioning. The Li family had produced renowned generals, generation after generation. Although the clan had once seemed close to decline, Li Sujin had risen suddenly and supported the entire household by himself. For the Chen family, this marriage was more than marrying above our station. It was a sparrow transforming into a phoenix. After Madame Chen had finished rejoicing, she glanced at me with a smile that was not quite a smile. What a pity! Some people scheme and exhaust themselves only to draw water with a bamboo basket. In the end, they are still destined to live beneath others. Chen Linlong covered her mouth with a handkerchief and laughed, her curved brows unable to conceal her triumph. Outside the manor, Madame Chen was praised as virtuous and generous, but before me she had never bothered to hide her hatred. My mother, Concubine Bai, had originally entered the Chen family as one of Madame Chen's dowry concubines. She was beautiful and intelligent. When Madame Chen married, she feared that her younger half-sister might later marry into a better family than she had. So she deliberately begged her maiden family to send my mother with her as part of the dowry. For more than 10 years, Madame Chen remained the lawful wife, while Concubine Bai remained a concubine. Madame Chen constantly used hierarchy, rules, and propriety to press my mother down until she could scarcely lift her head. Later, no one knew where my mother learned the art of raising gu. For a time she nearly pulled Madame Chen from the position of lawful wife. Unfortunately, the gu poison turned against her, and she failed at the final step. That old hatred had now passed to the next generation. Madame Chen still could not bear the thought of my marriage being better than Chen Linlong's. Whether it was my mother or me, we had to be trampled beneath that mother and daughter. Father had never wished to interfere in the inner courtyard. As long as no scandal spread beyond the manor, he always kept one eye open and the other closed. If I did not plan for myself, my future would surely be to become a dowry concubine for my legitimate elder sister. How hateful that my luck was as poor as my mother's. We had both fallen at the final step. As soon as night fell, I put on a veiled hat and quietly left the manor. My small courtyard had always been cold and neglected. Even if I stayed away all night, no one would notice. I knocked softly at the back gate of the Li residence. The steward beamed the moment he saw me. "Forth, miss, the general has been waiting for you for a long time. He had known I would come." I stumbled all the way inside, desperate to tell Li Wujin that the decree was wrong and that the woman meant to marry him was not my elder sister. Yet the moment I saw him sitting calmly in the inner chamber, leisurely tending the incense, I fell silent. He merely lifted his eyelids and looked at me once. I understood immediately. There was no need to say anything, he knew. Yet he sat as immovable as a mountain, silently waiting to watch me collapse. How could an imperial decree be mistaken? How could a eunuch read the wrong name? The person who had been wrong was me. Countless words lodged on my tongue, but in the end only one escaped. Why? Who would have thought that Li Wujin, who had once treated me so gently, would hurl the small incense scoop in his hand at my feet? He rose and approached me one step at a time, his gaze as sharp as a blade. "Chen Tingqian, who gave you the courage to question me? Do you need me to remind you of what you have done?" His merciless words left me stunned. What had I done? Was there anything I had done that could not be exposed to the light? Yes. At first I had approached him with a purpose. He was the husband my mother had carefully selected for me after much consideration. I wanted to rely on him to escape the Chen family. I did not want to remain under other people's feet, and I did not want to spend my entire life beneath Chen Linlong. But I truly liked him. I admired him as a hero. I loved the unyielding strength in his bones. I rejoiced that his heart could spare even a small corner for me. He had once said, "Channer to me, matching family status is nothing but an empty phrase." I, Li Wujin, must have accumulated 3 lifetimes of fortune to earn your regard. Once I obtain an imperial decree, I will have you marry into the Li family with honor. Those memories had once been like sweet wine running down my throat. Now, when I swallowed them, they left only a scorching, poisonous bitterness. But so what? He and I had loved each other. Was that something shameful? Seeing the confusion in my eyes, Li Wujin suddenly became angry for no reason. How long do you intend to keep pretending? Your legitimate elder sister told me long ago that your mother left you a pair of love gu. I almost stopped breathing. He clearly knew that Chen Linlong had never meant me well. He cut me off. You would use any method to climb higher. If eldest Miss Chen had not warned me, I would never have known that my feelings for you came from a gu insect. Li Wujin looked down at me as though I were a criminal awaiting judgment. And you still claim eldest Miss Chen wishes you harm? In my eyes, you are exactly like your mother. You only know how to use despicable methods to bewitch people's hearts. Since you wanted so badly to marry into a powerful household, I will let you taste what it is like to be toyed with. I will let you know what it means to yearn for something and never obtain it. I retreated one step at a time. I had never seen such a strange Li Wujin. I had never imagined that the wounds I had so carefully opened for him to see would one day become weapons in his hands, driven straight back into me. After venting his anger, he saw that my face had turned as pale as ashes. He knew he had gone too far, but he could not bring himself to lower his head. His voice turned hoarse. Do you have anything else to say? I understood him too well. The proud young General Li was offering me a step down, but I no longer wanted to coax him. When 2 people were together and everything was sweet, one advancing while the other retreated could be treated as flirtation and play. I had once even mocked myself, wondering whether I would truly abandon the position of a general's wife for the sake of a little dignity. Only when I was forced to this point did I realize that compromise was not so easy. Besides, the imperial decree had already been issued. Li Wujin and I had no future now. At last, I understood why my mother had always seemed so melancholy before she died. It turned out that this thing called love could truly become tasteless and empty. So be it. I bent and saluted him. In the past, Ting Chan was foolish and entrusted her heart to the wrong person. Now Ting Chan already has a marriage arrangement. From this day forward, I will no longer trouble General Li. That was plainly not the reaction Li Wujin had expected. He ground his teeth. Ting Chan, very well. Get out. Never appear before me again. If I hear even half a word from you slandering my fiancé, I will make certain you never speak again. I looked at him coldly, then turned and left without the slightest reluctance. At the doorway I looked back. A faint light flashed into Li Wujin's eyes, his lips parted, but he could not utter a word. I said slowly, my elder sister was not wrong. I did have a pair of love gu, but I was not skilled at raising them. They died before I ever met you. They have been gone for a long time. When my mother passed the love gu to me, she had gripped my hand tightly, and said that most men in this world were fickle and heartless. Only love gu could bind husband and wife together for a lifetime. If all else failed, she would rather see me take vows as a nun than become my elder sister's dowry concubine. But my mother did not know that after she died, the pair of love gu she had nurtured with her own heart's blood refused to accept a new master. They starved themselves and followed her in death. At the time I had believed that this was simply my fate. I had no blessing to enjoy happiness, so I extinguished the idea of approaching Li Wujin. Yet 3 years ago, when I saw him galloping down the long street on a fine horse, I still fell for him. The brocade-clad young man rode with fearless, magnificent spirit. As expected of my mother, she had understood my taste as clearly as if it lay in her palm. There had been little warfare at the frontier during the past 3 years. However long he stayed in the capital, I remained near him. Li Wujin went from treating me indifferently to seeing me differently, and finally to insisting that he would marry no one but me. Only last month, while sweeping my mother's grave, I had stood before her tomb and said, "Look, mother. We do not need love gu. Brother Wujin and I can still grow old together." The game had not even been decided, yet I had already rushed to hold a victory banquet. At that moment, my mother must have been angry that I had refused to listen to her. After my falling out with Li Wujin, life in the Chen family became even more difficult. Rumors had once circulated through the capital that a daughter of the Chen family clung shamelessly to Li Wujin. Outsiders did not know which daughter it was, but they all mocked the Chen family's young lady for dreaming beyond her station. My father felt humiliated and punished me countless times because of it. Now heaven had played an absurd trick. Everyone outside believed that the Chen daughter had been Chen Linlong all along. In an instant, the reputation of foolish obsession transformed into a romance between a talented man and a beautiful woman. People praised them for disregarding worldly judgment and family status in the name of love. Even the noble consort in the palace was deeply moved and personally inscribed 4 words for Chen Linlong, a match made by heaven. For a time, Chen Linlong outshone every other young lady. My father felt proud and honored and never again mentioned the disgrace. My 3 years of youth had become embroidery on someone else's wedding robe. Miss, wedding robes are difficult to embroider. You must protect your eyes. Hong Yu lit another low candle and placed it before me. All 10 of her fingers were thick with calluses, so she could not manage delicate embroidery. I had to sew the wedding robe myself. The Chen family had assigned me neither maidservants nor older attendants. Hong Yu had been an orphan rescued by my mother. Before my mother died, she asked Hong Yu to protect me. The household rarely gave me spending money. For years I had survived by embroidering in secret while Hong Yu took the finished work to a shop to sell. We could only just maintain our lives. Rumors had always followed my mother because she was said to understand Gu arts. As her daughter, I could not avoid suspicion. Even if the Chen family drove me out, no one would object. They kept me in the manor only so that my father and Madame Chen could preserve their reputation for generosity and tolerance. After all, many families in the previous dynasties had been destroyed because of accusations involving witchcraft and Gu. In name, I was the 4th miss of the Chen family. In truth, my life was worse than that of a maid in another household. For my marriage, it was already unusual that they remembered to give me 1 piece of red cloth from which to sew a wedding robe. I did not even dare imagine receiving jewelry or a dowry. Chen Linlong, by contrast, received new additions to her dowry every day after the imperial decree arrived. Not one person felt the slightest guilt toward me. In the days after I returned from the Li residence, my despair reached a dangerous point, and I nearly gave up on everything. Hong Yu discovered what I had hidden and held me while she cried through the entire night. My poor miss, even if you disappear from this world, will those people regret it? They only wish you'd vanish so that everything between you and General Li can be buried with you. Giving up would merely fulfill their vicious desire. The next morning I sat down and resumed embroidering my wedding robe. Hong Yu was right. They wanted to force me to surrender. The more they wanted to drive me toward ruin, the more determined I became to live well. On the day I finished embroidering my wedding veil, Hong Yu excitedly dragged me toward the main hall. Her words spilled out as quickly as beans pouring from a bamboo tube. Miss, guess who has come? No, there is no point guessing. You certainly will not get it right. Deputy General Xiao has brought the betrothal gifts. I secretly took a look for you. He is very handsome, and he looks quick-witted too. 68 loads of gifts. Even the eldest young master's wedding did not involve this many betrothal gifts. Miss, your suffering has finally come to an end. It took me a moment to understand that the Deputy General Xiao she meant was Xiao Qinghan, Li Wujin's subordinate. Until then he had existed only in the stories Li Wujin told. 3 generations of his ancestors had been soldiers guarding the frontier. Battle after battle had taken the entire family until Xiao Qinghan alone remained. The general recognized his talent and promoted him to serve at his side as deputy general. The main hall was filled with the fragrance of tea, and the matchmaker's hearty laughter seemed to carry that fragrance all the way into the rear courtyard. Hong Yu and I hid behind a screen and secretly looked inside. Seated in the guest position below my father was a young man wearing a dark, round-collared robe. His whole body radiated vigorous youth. The bold bearing he had tempered on the battlefield immediately overshadowed my father. Although he and Li Wujin were about the same age, Xiao Qinghan's openness made the general's solemnity seem almost deliberately cultivated. I had barely leaned out from behind the screen when Xiao Qinghan noticed me. His phoenix-shaped eyes were strikingly beautiful, and the remnants of a smile still lingered in them when he looked my way. The instant our gazes met, I hurriedly drew back behind the screen and pulled Hong Yu away. My father disliked my appearing while he received guests. If I displeased him, I would only give him another reason to punish me. Fortunately, before we had gone far, I heard my father exchanging polite farewells with Xiao Qinghan. I was still relieved that he did not seem like a meddlesome man when, before I had even taken a sip of water upon returning to my courtyard, a thunder of footsteps sounded outside. Chen Ting-chan, get out here! Chen Linlong arrived in a fury. When she saw me strolling calmly out of my room, the anger in her heart flared even higher. Only after her maids and older servants had surrounded my little courtyard from the inside out did she speak in a voice thick with mockery. 68 loads of betrothal gifts. Fourth sister, it seems your good days are finally coming. Of course she was not jealous of the gifts Xiao Qinghan had brought me. What infuriated her was that he had arrived first while the Li residents had shown no movement at all. So I deliberately said I would not dare call mine good fortune. The general's residence will surely send far richer gifts. After all, a deputy general cannot be allowed to surpass his commander. My words struck precisely where it hurt, and Chen Linlong's beautiful face immediately darkened. I truly underestimated you. Even now you can still keep General Li in the palm of your hand. I smiled. I truly do not understand what elder sister means. If anyone is capable, it is still elder sister. She had neither planted the tree nor tended it, yet she waited only to pluck the fruit. Now that the peach had not reached her mouth, how could she shamelessly run to question the person who had planted it? That mother and daughter had long made their malice toward me public, and I had never concealed my hatred for them either. They had starved me for days, forced me to kneel in the ancestral hall, and beaten me under the family rules, yet they still could not make me lower my head and beg at their feet. When they failed to subdue me, they had once planned to get rid of me altogether, so that they would no longer be annoyed by the sight of me. The matter eventually reached my father. He did not like me, but if someone dared openly harm one of his children before his eyes, it challenged his authority as head of the family. If he tolerated Madame Chen harming an unfavored concubine-born daughter this time, what would happen next? Would the next target be a favored daughter or even a son? In my father's eyes, legitimate and concubine-born daughters were not all that different. Sons were another matter. If even one son entered government service, the whole Chen family could rise to wealth and honor. In the end, Madame Chen was sent to Green Mountain Nunnery for a month to pray for the Chen family's blessings, and the matter was closed. For several years afterward, that mother and daughter did not dare make things too difficult for me, while I concentrated on surviving my own life. Now Chen Linlong had plainly come to vent her anger. I might as well satisfy her. At first, she had merely been frustrated. After a few sentences from me tore away the veil hiding her embarrassment, shame quickly became rage. A noble young lady could not curse openly herself, so naturally someone else would speak for her. An older servant beside her spat toward me and scolded. What a shameless little creature. Before marriage, you already entangle yourself with a man outside, yet you dare speak of it openly. Truly, someone gave birth to you, but no one taught you. Anything cultivated through wicked sorcery can only bear sinister fruit, while what the imperial family bestows is the true peach of immortality. After this tirade, Chen Linlong's expression eased considerably. She lifted her chin and warned me coldly. I do not care what method you use. Within 3 days, I must see General Li come to deliver his betrothal gifts. Otherwise, you had better beware of that Xiao family of yours. I nearly laughed from anger. This fool truly believed I still possessed goo insects, and imagined that threatening me would let her have whatever she wanted. I held back Hongyu, who had already rolled up her sleeves and prepared to charge forward, and looked directly at the servant, who had been shouting. That is right, I know wicked sorcery. Hurry and pray to your Buddha, see whether he can protect you and keep you safe. The servant's face instantly turned white. She glanced guiltily at Chen Linlong. Seeing that her mistress had no attention to spare for her, she quietly tightened her sleeves, terrified that some insect might crawl inside. The moment the servant shut her mouth, the courtyard fell silent, allowing Chen Linlong to hear me even more clearly. Since elder sister is so anxious, why not ask General Li yourself? Everyone in the capital praises the two of you for your profound devotion. Urging him to complete the proper rites should hardly be difficult. I covered my mouth and laughed softly. Oh dear. Could it be that elder sister was turned away from the Li residence and only then came looking for me? That single sentence nearly made Chen Linlong explode. Of course she had reason to be anxious, because I understood Li Wujin too well. He hated being manipulated more than anything. Chen Linlong had used the matter of the love goo to provoke him into breaking with me, but that day I told him that I no longer possessed them. He would need time to consider what her true purpose had been. The trust I had spent so much effort building with Li Wujin could not be destroyed completely by a few sentences from Chen Linlong. Until he thought the matter through, she would have to endure his coldness. Because our father headed an academy, she had read the classics since childhood and was praised everywhere as the talented young lady of the Chen family. When had she ever suffered such treatment? But that young general, famous for his military achievements, was proud by nature. Whether one was a talented lady or a great beauty, touching his deepest taboo would bring no mercy. Even I had nearly been flayed alive by his words. Chen Linlong plainly did not understand that. Her red-painted fingernail pointed straight at me. You dare show disrespect to your elder sister and speak such nonsense. Smash this courtyard. She had come to vent her anger but had instead had her true face exposed. Her shame merely fed her rage. Whether I endured silently or fought back, the outcome would have been the same. After several sharp crashes, the maids and older servants looked at one another in confusion. My courtyard was so poor that it practically contained 4 bare walls. Even if they smashed the single teapot into pieces, there would not be enough fragments for everyone to share. Chen Linlong still was not satisfied. She rushed toward me and raised her hand. Those servants fear your wicked tricks, but I do not. Before she had taken 2 steps, she pitched forward onto the ground. The strange thing was that the earth beneath her feet was perfectly level. There was not even a blade of grass. The maids and older servants stared at me, their eyes growing more terrified by the moment. Even Chen Linlong's own people forgot to help her. Someone screamed. The crowd that had arrived so aggressively scattered like frightened birds. Only Chen Linlong's personal maid remained loyal enough to tremble as she helped her mistress, who had twisted her ankle, away. After everyone had gone, Hongyu helplessly began gathering the broken pottery. Eldest Miss has always been like this. Whenever anything displeases her, she comes here to vent her anger. Without you, miss, she would not even have had a chance to see General Li, much less pick up the bargain that was supposed to belong to you. While Hongyu continued muttering, I picked up a small stone from the spot where Chen Linling had fallen and hurled it over the courtyard wall with all my strength. Who is there? A head appeared above the wall. 4th Miss truly has sharp eyes. The moment Hongyu saw who it was, she lowered her head and slipped back into the room. Xiao Qinghan vaulted lightly onto the top of the wall and sat there openly, looking straight at me. His expression even held a faint trace of expectation. Was he waiting for me to praise him? I had seen Chen Linlong's fall clearly. Just as her foot touched the ground, an outside force had struck her, making her lose her balance and tumble forward. To be fair, Xiao Qinghan had helped me. I could not simply stand there and allow Chen Linlong to slap me. If the 2 of us fought, only Hongyu and I would suffer the consequences. But why had he climbed onto my courtyard wall? I asked. How much did you hear? Xiao Qinghan answered with complete honesty. At first I wondered why the general would avoid the woman he loved. Now it seems the waters inside your Chen manor run very deep. The person afraid of scandal reaching my father was me, not him. Since Xiao Qinghan already knew the whole story, I was spared the trouble of explaining, but his attitude still made me curious. Now that matters have reached this point, I asked. What do you intend to do? I had prepared myself for words such as unchaste, shameless, or willingly depraved. Once he said them, I planned to quarrel with him properly. Better still, he could complain about me before the emperor. If my life could not be peaceful, I would drag the entire Chen family into the water with me. Unexpectedly, Xiao Qinghan agreed with me wholeheartedly. This proves that we share the same judgment. The general is young and accomplished. Who would not admire him? Since the general could fall in love with you, that proves you are a good young lady. The general cannot have been wrong in judging your character. I stared at him. The situation seemed to be developing in a very strange direction. When I remained silent, Xiao Qinghan patted his chest. Although I do not know why the general requested that His Majesty grant this marriage between us, I promise you this. You are the woman the general loves, so I will never touch even one finger of yours. After speaking, he scratched his head. That said, in West City we have a saying, a person's eyes grow in front, because people must keep walking forward. I can be your husband in name. But if I meet the woman I love in the future, I will certainly seek a separation from you. I will not let her suffer grievances. Seeing my expression darken, Xiao Qinghan realized I had misunderstood. He hurriedly explained, I know this marriage was granted by His Majesty. I will bear all the blame. I will never implicate you. I shook my head and sighed softly. Look at this. You keep saying I am the woman in Li Wujin's heart, yet what he has done cannot compare with even a fraction of what you understand. Even you know that the place of lawful wife should be reserved for the woman you love. Yet because of a few rumors, he casually pushed me toward another man. I am only grateful that I can make everything clear to you now, so there will be fewer troubles later. Xiao Qinghan instinctively tried to defend Li Wujin. Perhaps there is some misunderstanding. I no longer wish to mention Li Wujin. In any case, that is a matter between him and me. I never expected to drag you into it. The sunset burned red as fire, as though it intended to reduce my little courtyard to ashes. Chen Linlong had come to cause trouble, but had instead suffered a loss. Had I not also invited fresh trouble upon myself? She was now father's most treasured daughter. Once Madame Chen wept before him, another difficult struggle would surely follow. So I opened my mouth to send my guest away. If Deputy General Xiao has no other business, please return. Thank you for helping me today. Ting Chan will visit another day to offer her thanks properly. As soon as I finished speaking, faint crying drifted from Chen Linlong's courtyard. It was not that my hearing was unusually sharp, Chen Manor simply was not very large. Xiao Qinghan had once served as a vanguard, so he heard the sound even more clearly than I did. A vanguard had to think quickly. He immediately understood that he could rescue me once, but Chen Linlong would continue creating trouble for me. He called after me. There is a lantern festival on Vermilion Bird Street tonight, come with me. Since my mother died, I had rarely had the leisure to visit a lantern festival. Thousands upon thousands of flower lanterns displayed their colors, drawing young women into eager competition. Even noble young ladies who normally guarded every rule of propriety could use the festival as an excuse to relax for one night. Hong Yu, who had been watching Xiao Qinghan closely until then, soon had her attention stolen by the sea of lights. I immediately sent her away to enjoy herself. When Xiao Qinghan saw that I had little interest in the festivities, he quietly kept me company. We wandered and paused at our own pace. By the time we found Hong Yu again, several lanterns had appeared in my hands, all won by him. Carrying them, I silently turned my face to study him. He was skilled in both letters and arms. Had he been born into an official family in the capital, his achievements might not have been inferior to Li Wujin's. It seemed that when fortune turned against a person, even imagining another possibility was forbidden. We had not gone far from the bustle of Vermilion Bird Street when we encountered Li Wujin, returning to his residence on horseback. The smell of wine clung heavily to him. He had probably just left a banquet. His attendant led the horse with extreme care, afraid that his master might lose his balance and fall. The moment the attendant saw me, he looked as though he had found a savior. "Fourth miss." Hong Yu hurriedly stepped in front of me, but she was not fast enough. Li Wujin had already opened his eyes. The lantern light illuminated them as he spoke. "Channer, did you come to take me home?" Hong Yu's face reddened with anger. She turned to the attendant. "Can you not see that my young lady is here with her fiancé? Take your general back to his residence at once, fiancé." Li Wujin stared blankly for a moment. Then more than half the drunken haze vanished from his eyes. His expression darkened, and his hawk-sharp gaze swept between Xiao Qinghan and me. He gave a cold laugh. "Chen Ting-chan, are you truly so desperate for a man? We have been apart only a few days, yet you already cannot wait to cling to someone else." Xiao Qinghan frowned, as if seeing for the first time the general he had always admired. "General, forgive this subordinate for speaking frankly, but those words are improper. They will damage 4th Miss Chen's reputation." A man who had met me only that day knew enough to defend me. Anger surged through my chest and I answered immediately. "What does General Li mean by that? Deputy General Xiao and I are engaged by imperial decree. He can hardly be called an outsider. General Li knows that better than anyone, does he not?" Li Wujin flicked his riding crop. It struck the back of the attendant's hand as the man held the horse. The attendant endured the pain in silence and passed the reins to him. Xiao Qinghan's brows drew even tighter. Before he could speak, Li Wujin said, "I will take 4th Miss Chen home. Deputy General Xiao, this no longer concerns you." Xiao Qinghan pulled me behind him. "General, she is the subordinate's fiancé." Li Wujin tilted his head slightly, his eyes full of contempt. "That is an order." I refused to mount the horse. Li Wujin did not hurry. He bent down, curved an arm around my shoulders, and drew my head against him. The strong smell of wine reached me before his low voice did. His chin rested on the crown of my head. To outsiders, the posture looked as intimate as that of a pair of lovers. He whispered, "If you refuse to mount, Xiao Qinghan need not remain deputy general. I also have a loyal subordinate who lost the use of one leg and has been widowed for years. I have long wished to find him a wife. Hong Yu is still unmarried, is she not?" Then he added, "Channer, you are clever. You know what you should do." This was the man who had once claimed to understand my heart. He knew exactly how to control me. He knew I could not bear to implicate others. Helplessness rose like a tide and swallowed me whole. Like a puppet whose strings had been pulled, I allowed him to drag me onto the horse. The lotus lantern Xiao Qinghan had won for me fell to the ground. Blue paving stones were never where lotus flowers belonged. Flame wrapped itself around the crimson silk until the lantern and its light perished together. Li Wujin's arm tightened more and more around my waist, but I clenched my teeth and did not speak for the entire journey. That evening, my father had gone to my courtyard looking for me and found it empty. He led Madame Chen and Chen Linlong to wait in the main hall. The gate servant had not even finished announcing, "Fourth Miss has returned," when father's stern roar came from inside. "Wicked girl, get in here!" The servant hurriedly added, "Master, General Li is outside as well." The entire Chen family immediately came out to salute Li Wujin. Once I had desperately longed to ride openly beside him, but I had feared that the rumors of witchcraft surrounding me would bring him trouble. Whenever I met him, I instinctively avoided crowds or wore a veiled hat to conceal my face. When he told me that he did not care about gossip and wished to marry me, only heaven knew how happy I had been. Some things remained impossible, no matter how much one desired them. When they finally arrived at the wrong time, they became nothing but calamity. The Chen family must have thought the same when they saw Li Wujin and me sharing one horse. My father looked at me seated before him and could no longer force the words "wicked girl" from his mouth. Chen Linlong had prepared tears so that she could complain of her grievances again. Now her eyes rolled back, and she fainted on the spot. Madame Chen's gaze was sharp with hatred, as if she wished she could tear the tendons from my body. Previously, as long as the matter between Li Wujin and me was not exposed outside, they could pretend not to know. Now they could only be grateful that the neighbors had all gone to Vermilion Bird Street for the Lantern Festival, and had not witnessed the scene. My father hurriedly invited Li Wujin into the manor, terrified that someone might suddenly arrive to watch the Chen family's humiliation. I was driven straight back to my little courtyard. I did not know what they said to Li Wujin, but Chen Linlong swallowed her anger and did not come to trouble me again. The answer became clear the next day. Li Wujin came to deliver betrothal gifts to Chen Linlong. 128 loads arrived amid the roar of firecrackers and the shrill blare of horns. Children from half the city followed the procession to watch. Chen Linlong was immensely pleased. She deliberately sent 2 maids to stand outside my courtyard and count every load aloud. Hongyu became so angry that she chased them away with a broom. Chen Linlong then found 2 older servants with thunderous voices and ordered them to shout the count from farther away. I sat inside embroidering my wedding robe and pretended not to hear. All I wanted was to leave this suffocating Chen family as quickly as possible. As for what life would be like afterward, I would take it one step at a time. I could not see far enough to plan beyond that. The manor did not become quiet until after midnight. The more worries filled one's heart, the easier it was to lose sleep. After Hongyu finally drifted off, I continued embroidering until drowsiness began to blur my thoughts. Before it vanished, I quickly stored the wedding robe beneath the bed. As I straightened, someone suddenly seized me from behind. The familiar scent of musk mixed with camphor filled my nose. I lowered my head and bit his arm. When he released me in pain, I turned and slapped him across the face. "Li Wujin, have you gone mad?" Under the dim yellow lamplight, Li Wujin pressed his tongue against the izenite of his cheek. His eyes were fixed on me, filled with possessiveness. "Channer," he said hoarsely, "I missed you." I laughed from sheer anger. "General Li, in daylight you delivered betrothal gifts to my elder sister, and at night you sneak into her younger sister's chamber. Even the most shameless storybook could not invent a man like you." Li Wujin drew a deep breath and tried to calm himself. "You have hit me and cursed me. Surely your anger is spent now." I shook my head. "Li Wujin, do you still not understand? The problem between us has never been a simple quarrel or moment of anger. One sentence from someone else threw you into confusion and made you do something that cannot be undone. Deep in your heart, you had already decided I was a person who would use any means necessary. We cannot return to what we were. Please let me go." There were countless extraordinary physicians and practitioners in the world. Whether he had been affected by goo could have been established easily if he had been willing to investigate. But he had not wished to spend even that effort. How could love without trust ever endure? Li Wujin braced both hands against the edge of the bed, trapping me within his arms, and slowly enunciated every word. "It can still be repaired." I leaned away from him as far as I could. "What do you mean?" He answered, "The person who must marry Xiao Qinghan is Chen Tingchan. Unfortunately, 4th Miss Chen will suddenly die before the wedding. I will give you a new identity and bring you into my residence. From then on, you and Chen Linlang will stand as equals. I will never allow her to trample over you," he added with complete confidence. "Xiao Qinghan has always obeyed me. He will not dare object. Channer, as long as you soften toward me, I can grant you anything you desire. Stand as equals." Was that the solution he had devised? I would erase my name and past, become a woman of unknown origin, and depend entirely upon his favor for survival. I would be nothing more than a canary locked inside a cage. Once his favor disappeared, I would possess neither power nor status, while Chen Linlang watched me like a starving tiger. My ending was easy to imagine. I shoved Li Wujin away with all my strength. No matter how pleasant the title sounds, I would still be a concubine. Li Wujin, I will not become anyone's concubine. I pointed toward the door. Did you not say you could grant me anything? Then leave. Never disturb me again for the rest of my life. Li Wujin believed he had already lowered himself far enough. He had never imagined I would refuse. He blurted out, I am a third-rank military official of the court. Your father does not even hold office. What grievance could you possibly suffer by becoming my concubine? A deep sense of powerlessness rose within me. Li Wujin had been born standing above others. Everyone around him revolved around his wishes. Even when he first entered the army, he had been permitted to serve directly beside the mighty general, and had begun his career as a commandant. I had been too naive. I thought I was special and could cross every barrier of rank to stand beside him as an equal. I regarded myself as a human being. What was I in his eyes? The question no longer mattered. I dismissed him again. General Li, I will pretend you never came tonight. Please return. When tenderness failed and force gained him nothing, Li Wujin clenched his jaw. His expression became dark as he advanced, the pressure of his presence bearing down like a mountain. But I insist on leaving proof that I was here. Danger. Every instinct warned me to get away from him, and I acted at once. I kicked him hard, and when he staggered, I ran for the door. But his long strides carried him after me, and he caught me almost immediately. His arm tightened around my waist. The world spun, and in the next instant he had forced me back onto the bed. Li Wujin, I cried. If you try to force me, I will never forgive you. He made no attempt to hide the possessiveness in his eyes. His voice was hoarse. If you do not want me, then whom do you want, Xiao Qinghan? I requested that marriage only because he was loyal and easy to command. What right does a subordinate like him have to compete with me for you? I resisted with one hand while reaching for the scissors hidden beneath my pillow with the other. I used them to force him back, but he reacted quickly and escaped with only a shallow cut on his arm. Chen Ting-chan! His suppressed anger filled the room like the warning before a storm. I kept the scissors between us and made it clear that I would never submit. The certainty in my voice stopped him. His anger gave way to confusion, then panic, and he slowly straightened. I did not want it to become like this, he said. Channer, I lost control, only because you are in my heart. These past 2 days, whenever I imagine you laughing and talking with Xiao Qinghan, a fire burns inside me. Whenever I think of you becoming another man's wife, I cannot sleep through the night. For the first time, something has escaped my control. This time, I am truly afraid. He had believed he could control my entire life. He had believed that once he arranged everything to his satisfaction, I would abandon everything and run back to him. But the most frightening words in this world were, I thought. He still dared say that he was afraid. Between the two of us, who was the one who truly had reason to fear? I did not dare relax my guard for even an instant. When I spoke again, my voice was choked with emotion. Get out. If you do not wish to see this end in tragedy, leave now. At last, Li Wujin could only retreat. Before leaving, he turned and looked at me deeply. Moonlight fell through the window frame and covered him. His silhouette looked almost ghostly, making my heart pound. Then he suddenly smiled. Channer, we will meet again. Xiao Qinghan's home was not in the capital. The moment he received the imperial marriage decree, he gathered the betrothal wealth his family had saved through 3 regenerations and immediately set out for the city. Upon arriving, he did not rest for even a moment before riding straight to Chen Manor. His timing had been just enough for me to finish embroidering my wedding veil. But Xiao Qinghan could not remain in the capital for long. Less than a month after the Lantern Festival, he sent me a letter asking whether I was willing to move the wedding date forward. After 3 years of relative peace, the northern tribes beyond the pass had begun stirring again. Generations of his family had guarded the frontier, and he could not remain at ease in the capital. His proposal suited me perfectly. After receiving my agreement, Xiao Qinghan immediately informed my father that the wedding would take place early. It was, after all, a marriage granted by the emperor, and the groom was a lower 4th-rank military officer. On the day of my wedding, the Chen family therefore prepared a reasonably lively celebration. After Hong Yu helped me into my bridal robes, she wiped her tears carelessly with the back of her hand. How wonderful it would be if Concubine Bai were still alive to see this. I took her hand and smiled. While mother lived, I lacked the ability to give her better days. But from now on, I can finally take you with me to eat well and dress warmly. Hong Yu laughed through her tears. She carefully wiped both hands clean, then picked up my wedding veil. After comforting her, I tried to suppress the uneasiness that had been lingering in my heart. Li Wujin's faint smile beneath the moonlight that night returned to my mind again and again. I guarded against trouble by day and by night. At last I endured until the wedding day. Fortunately, nothing unexpected had happened. But just as Hongyu prepared to lower the veil over my head, my uneasiness became reality. Third sister, Concubine Wan's daughter, charged straight into my courtyard screaming as she ran. I will not marry. I refuse to leave the capital. She wore a brilliant red bridal robe. She had torn every hairpin from her hair and thrown them violently onto the ground. Concubine Wan hurried after her, painfully gathering the bent ornaments into her arms as she scolded. You troublesome girl! Your father has found you such a good marriage. Instead of being grateful, why are you throwing a tantrum on a joyful day like this? Then she saw me standing at the doorway, and her face turned white. Only then did she realize where third sister had run. I asked coldly. When was third sister promised in marriage? Concubine Wan flicked her handkerchief and forced a smile. Oh, I have only just finished embroidering your third sister's wedding robe. I merely asked her to try it on today. She even tapped herself lightly on the mouth. It was my fault. I teased her and she believed me. If I believed that explanation, I would deserve every consequence that followed. Before I could question her further, third sister shouted, You already dared to do it. What is there left to fear saying aloud? Did you not just tell me that fourth sister has no one supporting her, and even if she finds out, she cannot create any trouble? She wiped her face roughly, smearing her makeup, then turned toward me. You do not know yet. Today they intend to make me replace you, and marry that military brute Xiao Qinghan in your place. Concubine Wan screamed and hurriedly covered third sister's mouth. But third sister struggled and wept. Even if father does not know, do you not know? Yu Lang will come to propose the day after tomorrow. He has already passed the provincial examination. Did you not say yourself that his future is limitless? Now that the secret could no longer be hidden, Concubine Wan stopped avoiding the truth before me. She immediately called 2 older servants to drag third sister away and redo her makeup. That future is only impressive compared with the other scholars who passed the same examination. Who knows how many years he must wait before passing the metropolitan examination. Besides, he is merely a common scholar with no official post. Even if he passes, he may still receive no appointment. If you marry Xiao Qinghan now, you immediately become the wife of a high official. A famous scholarly family, is that what the Chen family calls itself? Third sister cried. I spit on it. Every one of you is filled with filthy schemes. If you refuse to let me live, I will drag all of you down with me. Enough. I took the cup of tea Hongyu handed me and smashed it before Concubine Wan's feet. She looked into my reddened eyes and her scream died in her throat. I said in a low voice, Hongyu, bring fire. If they insist on destroying us, then no one will enjoy peace. Oh my, fourth sister is truly angry. A soft, charming female voice reached us before its owner arrived, crawling into my ears like a venomous snake. Within moments, my already cramped courtyard was packed with people. Rows of maids and older servants stood aside, opening a path. Madam Chen entered with fifth sister, Chen Huairou. Chen Huairou was not Madam Chen's biological daughter. When her own mother died suddenly when she was 5, she had voluntarily recognized Madam Chen as her mother. For years, she followed Chen Linlang and took part in every cruel deed. Even the servants secretly said that she had a bodhisattva's face and a serpent's heart. Today, that false bodhisattva also wore an exquisitely embroidered bridal robe. Chen Huairou pointed at Hongyu and me. Why are you still standing there? They already know everything. Do you intend to let these 2 run outside and ruin my good fortune? The courtyard erupted into chaos. Hongyu and I were seized and held tightly. Chen Huairou walked forward at her leisure and snatched the wedding veil from Hongyu's hands. She did not even bother to look at me. Instead, she mocked third sister. Third sister, I do not mean to criticize you, but fortune has been delivered directly to your mouth and you still refuse to open it. Since you do not wish to marry, I am happy to take the advantage you threw away. Madam Chen became even more pleased, smiling until her eyes nearly disappeared. She personally lowered the wedding veil over Chen Huairou's head. Holding Chen Huairou's hand, she said, I was angry with the master only yesterday. Xiao Qinghan has a broad future ahead of him. He has visited this manor only once and has never truly met that ungrateful wretch. Why not give the marriage to our ruler instead? If the master had not feared that the concubines would accuse him of favoritism, how could such an opportunity ever have fallen to that ungrateful third girl? Seeing what had happened to me, third sister could not avoid the grief of one vulnerable creature seeing another destroyed. She said bitterly, Mother, fourth sister is already pitiful enough. She even had to gather her own dowry. Outsiders may not know who is beneath the veil, but do heaven, earth, and the spirits not know? Switching the bride in a marriage granted by imperial decree was the crime of deceiving the emperor. But my father and the others understood that once I married, I would escape their control completely. If Xiao Qinghan truly rose in the future, I might return one day to repay their cruelty. Since they were already prepared to risk death, they might as well use this opportunity to crush me entirely. Third sister, I called softly, look carefully. This is how ruthless she is. Some matters must remain buried in your heart. Never let her discover them. Otherwise, what happens to me today will happen to you tomorrow. Father himself never advanced beyond the provincial examination. Do you truly believe Madame Chen will allow you to marry well? So keep your secret firmly. Do not let her learn it. Seeing that I had torn away every pretense between us, Madame Chen no longer bothered acting kind. She walked forward with a sinister smile and patted my face. Two older servants pinned my arms so tightly that I could not move. Her fingernails slid across my cheek. Fourth girl, those words truly wound your mother's heart. But never mind, I am generous. I have already found you an excellent future. I stared at her as her red lips opened and closed. General Li spoke to your father long ago. No matter what happens, he will keep you and take you as a lowly concubine. If you wish to blame someone, blame the humble fate your birth mother gave you. Chen Huairu said petulantly. Mother, stop wasting words on her. The auspicious hour has arrived. Do not make my Xiaolang wait. Madame Chen casually assigned two older servants to guard my courtyard. Then the entire group surrounded Chen Huairu like stars around the moon and escorted her outside to the bridal sedan. The two guards locked the room from the outside, imprisoning Hong Yu and me within. Beyond the door, gongs and drums shook the sky. The two women sat outside, chatting idly about how much celebratory money Master Chen would distribute. Hong Yu stared at the locked door, her eyes red. Miss, I will fight them. But when she turned back, she saw that I had already removed my wedding robe. Miss, do not lose hope. Her alarm nearly made me drop the fire striker in my hand. I piled every candle in the room onto the bed, then looked at Hong Yu, who clearly did not understand. Once this room burns, the household will believe we died here. We will become people without registered identities. Hong Yu, do you dare leave with me? She understood at once. Hong Yu shoved aside the wardrobe, revealing a dog hole at the base of the wall. What are we waiting for, miss? Let us go. A dog hole was still a road out. In the past I had used it to slip outside and meet Li Wujin. Now I would use it to find a way to live. Fortunately, the Chen family had never cared about me. They did not even know that the wall of my room had been damaged for years. Hong Yu and I lit every candle. Only after the flames spread and the guards outside began shouting that the room was on fire did we crawl through the dog hole. We blocked it behind us with loose rubble and hurried away. Before we had gone far, the old room in which I had lived for more than 10 years collapsed. They wanted to sell me to Li Wujin. Then I would burn away everything they intended to use and leave them to tear one another apart. Smoke had blackened Hong Yu's and mine until we looked no different from two beggars passing a group of beggars. The beggars even praised us. Well, you two certainly looked the part. Stole those clothes, did you? They were sharp-tongued but enthusiastic. Come with us to watch the excitement outside Chen Manor. Hong Yu's face immediately darkened. Bah, that entire household is full of wolves. What is worth watching? One beggar raised a thumb. You are well informed. How did you know the Chen family was shameless enough to switch the bride? A middle-aged woman standing nearby heard him and immediately joined the conversation. I saw it with my own eyes. The groom frowned the moment the bride came through the gate. He must have noticed that her build was wrong. You may not know this, but fourth Miss Chen is tall and slender. The bride who came out was almost half a head shorter. She examined me from head to toe, then slapped her thigh. Fourth Miss is about as tall as this girl here, the beggar said. See? Noticing how attentively we listened, the woman became even more animated. But guess what happened next? The groom refused to make a scene at first. Only when he helped the bride into the sedan did he give a slight pull. She became frightened and cried out. The moment he heard her voice, he knew the bride had been switched. He drew his sword on the spot and demanded to know where fourth Miss Chen was. The beggar asked, where else could she be? Still inside the manor, of course. Then he pointed toward my courtyard. Look, that last room belongs to her. The beggar, the woman, and everyone leaning closer to listen suddenly froze. Black smoke was surging from my courtyard into the sky. If one listened carefully, the servants could be heard screaming for water and shouting that there was a fire. The entrance of Chen Manor dissolved into chaos. At that moment, an enraged shout sounded nearby. Headmaster Chen, if anything has happened to Ting Chan, I will go before His Majesty and accuse you of deceiving the Emperor. A red-clad figure vaulted onto the wall, his feet barely touching the tiles as he prepared to charge directly into my courtyard. Hongyu and I exchanged a glance and hurried after him. The broken house in which I had lived for more than 10 years had lost one wall, while the roof beams still burned. An eastern wind rose, driving the flames toward the storehouse roof. I heard Chen Linlong screaming until her voice turned hoarse. Hurry! All my dowry is in there. What a beautiful sight. I should have watched it properly. Chen Tingchan, Xiao Qinghan's anxious call pulled my reason back. He stood on the roof, looking down at the growing fire. The servants remained outside, throwing buckets of water that vanished uselessly into the flames. Someone suddenly shouted, "General Li has arrived to help. Clear the way." The crowd scattered like startled birds. But Xiao Qinghan would not wait even a moment. Seeing him prepare to leap from the wall into the burning courtyard to search for me, I no longer cared whether Li Wujin discovered that I was alive. I did not want Xiao Qinghan to be hurt. "Xiao Qinghan, you fool! I am here!" This had nothing to do with love. Xiao Qinghan stood on the wall looking down at me, just as he had the first time we met. The flames rising into the sky looked exactly like the sunset that day. He leapt down from the wall. Only then did I see that he still clutched the wedding veil I had embroidered with my own hands. His chest rose and fell violently. In the end, he merely reached out and roughly wiped the soot from my face. "You frightened me to death," he scolded. Countless questioning gazes followed him. I heard the middle-aged woman cry in astonishment. Heavens! I wondered why this girl looked familiar. "She truly is fourth Miss Chen. Everyone, come and look." Master Chen is supposedly a scholar, yet he drove his own daughter so far that she had to burn her room to escape. Most people had come only to watch the spectacle. Only one gaze made my entire body feel uncomfortable. I raised my head and met Li Wujin's furious eyes. The next instant, red silk covered my head. Xiao Qinghan's voice came from above me. "Come, we are going home." Hongyu said there was a place she had to visit, so she could not travel with us. We parted outside the city, 18 li from the capital. Xiao Qinghan went to prepare the carriage, leaving Hongyu and me alone to speak privately. She went on, reminding me to eat at regular times, to wear more clothes when the weather turned cold, and to run indoors when it rained. She was only 10 years older than I was, yet she worried over me more than a mother would. She said her journey might last only a few months, or perhaps more than 10 years. She had watched me grow from a tiny child into a young woman and truly could not bear to leave. I teased her. "Then do not go." But as she had already resolved to leave, my heart felt painfully tight, and at last, I could not stop myself from saying, "Hongyu, the person who truly knows how to raise Gu, is it not?" She paused, then smiled bitterly. "When did you discover it?" I lowered my head and scuffed the ground repeatedly with the toe of my shoe. "I knew long ago. I knew even before Mother died. My mother rarely left the manor." The one unusual event in her life had occurred on the road to a temple, where she rescued Hongyu when Hongyu possessed not a single coin and was fighting a stray dog over a piece of flatbread. From that point onward, my mother gradually gained father's favor until her influence even surpassed Madame Chen's. For a brief time, I also lived well. Hongyu was a Gu practitioner who belonged to a sect. But Gu arts were hated and persecuted throughout the dynasty, so her sect could only hide from the world. Young Hongyu had possessed ambitions greater than the sky. She always believed she could change how people viewed Gu insects. Yet not long after descending the mountain, she had nearly starved. After my mother saved her, Hongyu saw how miserable my mother's life was and used her abilities to help her obtain father's favor. Unfortunately, Hongyu sighed softly when she spoke of my mother. She refused to use love Gu. She said your father was unworthy of sharing one heart with her. That pair was also the last love Gu I possessed. Love Gu must be nourished by love. There was no love in Chen Manor. The fact that they survived until your mother died was already a miracle. Hongyu rubbed my head. I could never feel at ease leaving you alone in Chen Manor. Now that you have finally escaped that wolf's den, I can go and attend to my own affairs without fear. Uneasiness filled me. You will come back for me, will you not? Hongyu answered with complete seriousness. I swear before the sacred maiden that I will go to the northwest and find you. Your mother's final request to me has not yet been fulfilled. I had never left the capital before. Only after setting out did I understand how vast the world truly was. We traveled whenever daylight allowed and slept in our clothes when night overtook us. Xiao Qinghan felt deeply guilty. He believed I should have been able to travel leisurely, enjoying mountains and rivers as we made our slow way to West City. Instead, because of him, I had to sleep beneath the open sky and endure wind, rain, and hardship. But to me this journey was the freest time I had ever known. I no longer woke each morning trembling with fear. I did not have to torment myself wondering how to survive the road ahead. More than that, being with Xiao Qinghan felt comfortable. Between us, there was equality. Only 2 more days of travel remained before we reached West City. The scenery had transformed completely into the yellow earth landscape of the northwest, like a bold painting made with sweeping strokes. I rested my chin beside the carriage window and chatted idly with Xiao Qinghan. He told me about the customs of the northwest, while I told him stories from my own life. I had just finished describing how, at 13, I had matched wits alone against both Chen Linlong and Chen Huairo without yielding at all. When I realized he had not responded, Xiao Qinghan, I hurriedly lifted the curtain to look for him. He was still sitting steadily in the saddle. I patted my chest in relief. You frightened me, I thought you had fainted. Chen Tingchan. After many days together, he now called me directly by my full name. There is something I have not understood since we left the capital. He turned to look at me. His eyes, normally so clear, were filled with confusion. Officials in the capital manipulate power while filling their mouths with benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and integrity. Yet there is no filthy act they will not commit. One sentence from them is enough to leave ordinary people with no road to survive. He continued, I admired the general for his courage on the battlefield. But in the capital, he colluded with Master Chen to harm a young woman who had no one to rely upon. He treated an imperial decree as a joke and a human life as a toy. Master Chen spent his life harboring great ambitions but never received an appointment. Yet inside his inner courtyard, he could command wind and rain. Madame Chen controlled the household and freely tormented children weaker than herself. Every level of society presses down upon the one below it, revealing ugly faces everywhere. His voice grew lower. Tell me, have 3 generations of my family buried their bones at the frontier to protect people like these? I crouched beside the carriage window and thought until my head nearly smoked. At last I said, I do not know. His shoulders sagged at my answer. I reached out and patted him lightly. But that is all right. Life's road is long. We can search for the answer slowly. West City was a small frontier city. Its roads were packed yellow earth, and green trees were rare. Wealthier households hung thick rugs before their doors to block the wind and sand. Poorer families could not bear the cost of cloth and simply swept more often. The guard at the city gate brightened the moment he saw Xiao Qinghan and embraced him excitedly. He could not wait to ask what the capital was like and whether the general was well. Xiao Qinghan secretly glanced at me. I pretended not to notice. Only then did he tell the guard that the general was soon to marry, but he omitted every entanglement between Li Wujin and me. After several sentences, the guard finally noticed me. His face immediately turned red. This must be sister-in-law. Forgive me. Look at me, so excited that I forgot how many days the 2 of you have spent on the road. I waved a hand. It is no trouble. Xiao Qinghan took the reins and said smoothly, Your sister-in-law followed me through wind and weather for the entire journey. Before she could even reach home, you stopped us here. Remember that you owe us a feast and wine later. The guard grinned and cursed him affectionately. You certainly know how to take advantage. Xiao Qinghan laughed and waved, signaling that they would talk another day. When he began to leave, the guard remembered the important matter and hurriedly called him back. 5 days ago, Deputy General Lin led troops to repel a group of northern soldiers. There were not many of them, so they were probably probing our defenses. Yesterday, scouts found signs of northern troops 10 li from the camp. Deputy General Lin has ordered that no women or children may leave the city without permission. The coming days will not be peaceful. After bidding the gate guard farewell, I asked Xiao Qinghan why leaving the city was so troublesome and required a special order. When he explained, I drew a sharp breath. He told me to look at the people moving through the streets. The vendors, peddlers, and even most shopkeepers were women. A few were native residents, but the majority were soldiers' family members. The military camp stood 2 li outside West City, like a shield protecting the entire settlement. If the northern tribes attacked, every officer and soldier would have to fight with his life. If they retreated or suffered defeat, West City behind them would become a living hell overnight. When the founding emperor fought to establish the dynasty, he required military families to follow the army. That rule had continued to the present day. Even the wife of the commanding general had to obey it upon coming here. Since the northern tribes were moving, Li Wujin, commander of the Western Garrison Army, would probably return to West City within days. In other words, although I had fled 1,000 li away, I still could not escape Chen Linlong. It truly felt as if fate wished to torment me. West City was not large. In less than half the time needed to burn a stick of incense, we reached Xiao Qinghan's old home. It was said that 3 generations of the Xiao family had lived there, but in truth it was only a small one-courtyard residence. The main room connected to a row of side rooms. The courtyard had been paved with brick and stone, but its age was obvious. Many tiles were cracked. As soon as the carriage stopped, a woman and a tall armored warrior came out to welcome us. "Congratulations to Brother Xiao on forming a good marriage," the warrior called. Only when she spoke did I realize that she was a woman. Her shoulders were broad and her back powerful. Merely standing there, she looked more heroic than many men. Xiao Qinghan introduced her. "This is my military colleague, Lin Shengnan. She is the Deputy General Lin mentioned by the city guard." Lin Shengnan's skin was the deep tone of sandalwood. Looking closely, I could see freckles scattered across the bridge of her nose, but what drew attention first was the astonishing brightness of her eyes. When introducing me, Xiao Qinghan said, "This is 4th Miss Chen Tingchan. She has only just arrived and knows nothing of this place. I will have to trouble you to look after her in the future." "Knows nothing of this place? Are the two of you still unfamiliar with each other?" Lin Shengnan's mouth moved faster than her mind. By the time she noticed that my hair was still arranged in the style of an unmarried woman, it was too late. She looked at Xiao Qinghan with an indescribable expression. "Perhaps we truly were not familiar." Xiao Qinghan gritted his teeth and closed his eyes. "Enough, stop trying to repair what you just said." My face grew warm, and I awkwardly changed the subject. I looked toward the woman who had stood smiling silently beside them since our arrival. She belonged to Lin Shengnan's household, and had been asked to help Xiao Qinghan clean the house before I moved in. Since he was the only surviving member of his family, he rarely returned home. That night, Lin Shengnan stayed with me in the main room. When I saw the scars battle had left across her body, my eyes widened. I had never met a woman like her. My mother had taught me to compete and fight for what I needed. My father expected me to be gentle and obedient. Madame Chen wanted me to lower my head and yield. Almost everyone assumed that a woman's battlefield lay inside the inner courtyard. No one had ever told me that a woman could be this powerful, or that she could carry a spear into battle. I quietly shrank deeper beneath the quilt, hiding my slender arms and legs. I had always believed that my outstanding beauty and delicate figure were weapons. After meeting Lin Shengnan, I felt inferior instead. I was clearly far more beautiful than she was, yet even I could not explain why I felt this way. Xiao Qinghan had once said that if he later met a woman he truly loved, he would separate from me. But how could I easily surrender such a favorable marriage? I had no parents-in-law to serve, I was the wife of an official, and I could live far from the capital. I had once believed that no matter what kind of woman appeared, I could defeat her. But what if that woman was someone like Lin Shengnan? She could earn military merit through her own strength. She could support an entire household herself. In a frontier city threatened by war, she naturally shone more brightly than I did. Just as Xiao Qinghan had wondered whether the sacrifices of frontier soldiers were worthwhile, I also began to question myself. What was the success and advancement I had pursued so stubbornly all these years? I stared at Lin Shengnan as she adjusted her armor, and realized that a subtle jealousy had taken root inside me. I envied her. I envied the fact that she did not need marriage to earn other people's respect. More painful than that jealousy was the helplessness of being unable to decide my own life. I probed carefully, "Deputy General Lin, why have you not married yet?" Lin Shengnan's answer was entirely beyond my expectations. She immediately cursed. If I were allowed to decide my own marriage, I would find 100 pretty young men to warm my bed. Her shocking words only made me feel more hopeless. If even a woman as capable as Lin Shengnan could not freely choose her own future, what could I possibly do? Was I truly supposed to wait until Xiao Qinghan's destined woman appeared, then be sent back to my maiden family? Xiao Qinghan gave me little opportunity to continue worrying. For more than a month after our arrival, he buried himself in the military camp and trained soldiers. He visited me even less often than Lin Shengnan did. Whenever he returned, he looked like a guest in his own home. Sometimes he brought me a flower hairpin. Sometimes he brought back an unusual trinket sold by a foreign merchant from the western regions. In return, I took responsibility for mending and sewing his clothes. He said, "All the brothers in camp envy me. They say my wife sews so skillfully that no matter how they wear their clothes, they never need fear a seam coming apart." Whenever he said such things, his face turned red with embarrassment, and his eyes repeatedly flicked toward me to see whether I had become angry at his calling me his wife. When I proudly told him that I had supported myself with embroidery since childhood, He pressed his lips together to suppress a smile and turned aside, pretending to watch the birds in the sky. Those days were no different from the life of an ordinary married couple in West City. Unfortunately, on the day of cold dew, I saw Lin Shengnan leading a troop of men hurriedly past my door. I thought the Northern Army had arrived, and was panicking over what to do when the neighboring auntie laughed at me. "You silly girl, the general has merely returned to West City. What are you so nervous about?" To me, he was hardly better than the Northern Army. Roads in West City connected in every direction, and there was more than one route to the general's residence. Yet Li Wujin deliberately chose the road that passed directly before my home. 4 tall war horses pulled a magnificent carriage, decorated with red silk. The bells on the horses jingled as it passed. Behind it stretched a procession so long that its end could not be seen. Every wagon carried Chen Linlong's dowry. The Chen family had returned the full 128 loads, nearly emptying the household's wealth. Several well-informed military wives had already heard that Li Wujin married in the capital. He had left immediately after collecting his bride a month earlier, so the formal wedding rites would be completed that night in West City. Every man, woman, elder, and child in the city could go to the general's residence for celebratory wine. Naturally, I wished to stay as far away as possible, but Xiao Qinghan was Li Wujin's deputy general and certainly could not avoid attending. Once he returned to the city, he would surely come home. So I prepared a pot of soup to ease the effects of wine and waited for him. Unexpectedly, the person brought to my door was not Xiao Qinghan. 2 personal guards supported one of her arms each, their faces apologetic. "Madam, forgive us. Every time Deputy General Lin becomes drunk, old Madam Lin gives her a terrible scolding. She refuses to go home, so we had no choice but to bring her here. We must trouble Madam to watch over her tonight." That was a small matter. But I remembered clearly that soldiers were forbidden to become drunk during a military alert. Lin Shengnan had always obeyed military discipline more strictly than anyone. Why had she violated the order so openly this time? If she was this drunk, what had happened to Xiao Qinghan? I asked the 2 guards to bring him back as well if they encountered him. They both waved their hands immediately. "Deputy General Xiao has been caught in a troublesome matter. He probably cannot return tonight." My heart lurched. Could Li Wujin be trying to deal with Xiao Qinghan? Before I could ask for details, the drunken Lin Shengnan stirred and spat fiercely to the side. What kind of general's wife refuses to understand reason? The horses pulling her dowry are war horses. Of course they had to be taken back to camp. Do you know what she said? She claimed that rough soldiers like us were taking advantage of her husband. She said the war horses belonged to her household and accused me of taking them away merely to vent anger on your behalf. Lin Shengnan became more agitated as she spoke. The general was so embarrassed that he had to repair the situation himself, saying she had only just arrived and did not understand the rules. Only then did I learn that she and you came from the same family. Heavens, no wonder you never speak of your relatives. If it were me, I would stay silent too. It is too humiliating. I sighed inwardly. The reason I had refused to attend the wedding banquet was that I knew Chen Linlong would certainly lose control. In the capital, she had not even enjoyed enough time to display her triumph before being forced to follow Li Wujin to West City. She could never accept the difference between what she imagined and what she found here. I did not want to become the place where she emptied her anger. Who would have imagined that Xiao Qinghan would take the trouble in my place? Fortunately, after Lin Shengnan fell asleep, Xiao Qinghan finally escaped the wedding banquet. He looked exhausted. The instant he saw the guilt on my face, he knew what I intended to say. He rubbed my head. When I raised a hand to touch my hair, I discovered that he had tucked a small velvet flower hairpin into it. He smiled. "No matter what, I am your husband. If she intends to make things difficult for you, and I refuse to stand before you, would that not mean allowing her to bully you?" I clutched the little hairpin, feeling my eyes sting. The corner of Xiao Qinghan's mouth lifted. "Why make such a face? You need not feel wronged on my behalf. I am still a lower 4th-rank military officer. She cannot do anything to me." I remained worried. "But what if she asks Li Wujin to deal with you? I know how easily a superior officer can crush a subordinate." "Rarely," Xiao Qinghan frowned. "Compared with that, I am more worried about you." He was right. One might avoid trouble once, but not forever. Now that Li Wujin had returned to West City, he would surely remain until the fighting subsided. No one could predict how many things might happen during that time. But the rule of survival I had learned since childhood was simple. If I could handle something, I handled it. If I could not, I hid. If I could not even hide, then I would fight until both sides broke. Fortunately, after calming down, Chen Linlong also realized how foolishly she had behaved. Until winter approached, she did not dare step outside the general's residence. Even more, she did not dare let me appear before Li Wujin. Back in the capital, Li Wujin had already conspired with the Chen family to switch the marriage. Now with the emperor far away, Chen Linlong could not guarantee that he would not devise some even dirtier scheme. For the first time, we reached a delicate balance. On the winter solstice, West City received its first snow. It arrived suddenly. Women and children throughout the city hurried to carry thick clothing outside the military camp for their relatives. At first, I planned to ask the neighboring auntie to deliver Xiao Qinghan's clothes for me. She looked at the unmarried hairstyle on my head and teased, "If you take them yourself, your husband's heart will be sweet as honey. If an old woman like me carries them, Deputy General Xiao may become disappointed." My face reddened. It was not that I had never thought of arranging my hair like a married woman, but Hongyu was no longer beside me, and I truly did not know how. Later, I secretly learned. Yet Xiao Qinghan rarely came home. Whenever I finally waited until he returned, I planned to wear the married style the following morning, so that the neighbors would stop teasing us. But the moment I saw Xiao Qinghan's smiling face, I became shy again. It always felt as though I were pressuring him to consummate the marriage. Fortunately, the neighbors merely enjoyed teasing a young couple. They bore no malice and were in fact secretly anxious on our behalf. The auntie pulled me onto her donkey cart. We each wore a straw cape, and the swaying cart carried us to the western garrison camp. It was there that I encountered an old nurse bringing happy news for Li Wujin. When she saw me hand the padded clothing to the soldier guarding the camp, she pressed a handful of sweets into my palm. She said cheerfully, "The general's wife is expecting." We brought sweets to share the happiness with everyone. The neighboring auntie leaned forward curiously and asked how far along the pregnancy was. The nurse beamed. "More than 2 months. The physician even said it appears to be a son. Perhaps he will follow in the general's footsteps one day." Everyone calculated the dates and realized that the child had been conceived on the journey to West City. In the capital, becoming pregnant before completing the formal wedding rites would certainly have drawn criticism. But in West City, every child represented another piece of hope against invasion, so no one made things difficult for them. I thought that Chen Linlong's pregnancy had finally secured her position in the general's residence. For the sake of the child, perhaps she would no longer have the energy to trouble me. The thought allowed me to relax. At that moment, a familiar face appeared. Chen Linlong's personal maid had followed her to West City. She stood before me amid the endless white snow. "Fourth miss, Madam asks you to speak with her in the carriage." Only then did I notice an exquisite carriage waiting in the distance. A charcoal brazier warmed the interior until it felt like a heated room. Chen Linlong clearly had not adapted to life here. Though she was already 2 months pregnant, she had visibly lost weight. With open disgust, she ordered her maid to throw away the snow-covered cape from my shoulders, terrified it might dirty the precious fox fur rug beneath her feet. I stood at the carriage entrance and waved for the maid to sit down and serve this treasured young lady properly. The first words from Chen Linlong's mouth were an accusation. "You still have not become a true wife to Xiao Qinghan? Is it because your heart continues to yearn for my husband?" She looked exactly like a hen spreading its feathers to protect its nest. The maid hurried to soothe her. "Madam, why become angry with this lowly creature? It would be terrible if you harmed the young general in your belly." The maid had not finished speaking when my palm struck her face. She clutched her cheek. "You—" She could not form a complete sentence. When she saw my hand rise again, she shrank back and looked desperately toward Chen Linlong for rescue. Chen Linlong screamed, "How dare you?" I answered coldly. "When we were young ladies in the same household, you allowed your servants to insult and curse me. You could use the claim that an elder sister is like a mother to press me down. But open your eyes and look clearly. This is West City. I am the wife of a 4th-rank military officer of the court. How could Xiao Qinghan permit an insolent servant like this to humiliate a member of his household?" I was required to strike back. Xiao Qinghan and I were husband and wife, one body in the eyes of others. If even a vicious servant could casually insult his family, others would imitate her. How could he maintain authority in the army afterward? That was the proper justification. The truth was that I had wanted to hit her for years. If possible, I would have liked to strike Chen Linlong as well. Chen Linlong shouted, "My husband is the 3rd-rank general of the Western Garrison." I glanced at her, the corner of my mouth curving. "Very well, then invite General Li to judge the matter." We shall see whether this servant still possesses her tongue afterward. Chen Linlong wanted nothing more than to erase me from the world she shared with Li Wujin. How could she dare allow this matter to reach his ears? The maid saw her mistress's face turn pale and understood that she had caused serious trouble. She dropped her knees before me and struck her own face repeatedly. This servant was wrong. Madame Xiao, please calm your anger, I sneered. After so many years, this is the first time I have learned that you know how to speak like a human being. Whenever outsiders were present, the maid called me fourth miss. Inside the manor, she opened her mouth only to call me a lowly wretch or little beast, all to amuse Chen Linlong. Now she had attempted the old trick again and injured herself with the stone she meant to throw at another. As the sharp sounds continued, Chen Linlong's expression grew darker and darker. At last, she could bear it no longer. She kicked the maid aside. Get out, you useless thing! The maid did not even dare put on her outer cloak. She climbed from the carriage trembling. Chen Linlong had intended to threaten me into staying away from Li Wujin. Instead, I had used her own maid to give her a warning. When hardness failed, she changed to a softer tone. Chen Tingchan, is your heart truly made of iron? Do you feel no guilt at all toward your own sister? Could a human being truly say such words? I began to wonder whether some strange spirit had taken Chen Linlong's body. Had she even forgotten where her marriage came from? Far from feeling guilty, I thought she should kneel and bow to me in gratitude. Before I could tell her to seek treatment for her illness, Chen Linlong spoke mournfully. Chen Huairu was drowned in a pig cage because of you. Because Chen Huairu had replaced me in the bridal sedan, the entire Chen family had been accused of deceiving the emperor. When the threat of collective punishment appeared, my father and Madame Chen immediately cut off the limb to save the body and placed every crime upon Chen Huairu. They protested their innocence, saying that Chen Huairu had become recklessly ambitious and acted as though possessed. They insisted that once the bridal veil was lowered, even they did not know who stood beneath it. Li Wujin feared being implicated and secretly used every means to protect himself. In the end, Chen Huairu was gagged, locked inside a pig cage, and publicly put to death as the sole culprit. Chen Linlong's eyes turned red as she demanded, Chen Tingchan, how does it feel to drive your own sister to her death? If only you had. If only I had done what? I stepped forward. The snow remaining on my clothes fell to the floor and dampened her beloved fox fur. My muddy shoes stepped directly onto it. Were you going to say that if I had done nothing and obediently allowed her to replace me, she would not have died? Fool, I said. She died before your eyes, yet you still do not understand who forced her to that end. How do you have the face to scream at me? Or do you imagine that placing every crime upon me will lessen your own guilt? Chen Linlong's lower lip trembled violently. I had plainly enraged her beyond measure. No, you are not only foolish. You are both foolish and cruel. I bent down and forced her to look directly into my eyes. She tried to avoid my gaze but could not. The warm carriage suddenly felt like a narrow prison. Others may not know the truth, but do you not know it? Yet because you wished to protect your own wealth and honor, you watched your dear younger sister be sacrificed without speaking, did you not? I gave a faint smile. Do not say she did not die because of me. Even if she had, I would still applaud. I, Chen Tingchan, have never claimed to be kind, and I have never believed in repaying hatred with virtue. I lightly touched Chen Linlong's belly. She screamed in terror. The maid who had been kneeling outside immediately rushed back into the carriage. Madam, I stood, tightened my cape, and said slowly to the maid, take good care of your mistress. The child in Chen Linlong's belly was charmed in preserving her life. The conspiracy between Li Wujin and the Chen family was like a barrel of powder that might explode at any moment. For now, they appeared to be in the same boat. But if the Chen family attempted to demand even greater benefits from the general, he would never allow them to manipulate him freely. When one could not solve a problem, one eliminated the person who created it. Chen Huairu must have understood that lesson very clearly before her death. After leaving the carriage, I went to the camp entrance to find the neighboring auntie, only to be told that she had already returned. Puzzled, I looked back at the vast field of snow, gritted my teeth, and prepared to walk home. Madame Xiao, please wait. The general asks you to enter his command tent. He has something to discuss. I truly should have checked the calendar before leaving home. Husband and wife, one after the other, both wished to speak with me. The soldier, delivering the order, watched me with shining eyes, plainly determined not to let me leave if I refused. I entered the command tent. The moment I lifted my head, I saw Li Wujin standing with his back to me. In his hands, he held the winter clothing I had brought for Xiao Qinghan. General, the weather is bitterly cold. Please have someone deliver those warm clothes to Deputy General Xiao Liwu turned. His gaze was sharp as a knife, and his expression colder than the snowstorm outside. You care for him deeply. I smiled faintly. What wife does not care for her husband? Channer, embarrassment flickered across Li Wujin's face. Why must you speak so harshly to me? I can explain what happened with the Chen family, I replied. Perhaps General Li should first explain how Chen Huairou became the sacrifice for so many people. Chen Huairou? Li Wujin frowned. It took him a long moment even to remember who she was. Then he said impatiently, I instructed them to treat you well. Yet that lowly girl drove you to burn the house before you could escape. Her death is no loss. Then how many people must die before the general considers it a loss? I asked. Must I die as well before this twisted bond finally ends? The moment I called our relationship twisted, Li Wujin became agitated. Chen Tingqian, you were the one who approached me first. He stepped forward and seized my arm, intending to pull me into his embrace. I threw his hand away. When you listened only to Chen Linlong's claim that I possessed love goo, why did you not behave like this? Now I am grateful for the matter. It allowed me to see you clearly before I reached a point from which there was no return. Li Wujin reached toward me again. No, you must have placed goo upon me. Otherwise, why do I think of you every day and remain awake every night? I laughed aloud. Only moments ago, I met the wife who is carrying your child. Congratulations, General. You will soon have a son. Not the slightest happiness appeared on his face. Instead, he looked troubled. I tried to accept her. I forced myself to forget you. I could not. Li Wujin frowned deeply, struggling to make me understand. She obeys me in everything, exactly like everyone else. She knows only how to please me. The man before me made me feel sick. A person had many faces. In the eyes of the Western garrison soldiers, he was a heroic young commander. I had once admired that side of him beyond measure, but standing before me now, he was like a demon attempting to drag me into the underworld. He knew what I would face, yet selfishly wished to possess me. He did not truly love me. His whole life had gone smoothly, and suddenly one person refused to obey him. He could not bear being denied what he wanted. I said calmly, Li Wujin, I am very satisfied with my present life. Do not forget that before you stands the entire Western garrison army, and behind you are more than 100 members of the Li family. I have nothing left to bind me but one life. Do not press me until I drag you down with me and ask the King of Hell to judge between us. After speaking, I picked up the clothing he had thrown onto the ground in his agitation. My husband is unlike the general. He has only me at home to mend his clothes. Please do not keep your subordinates' garments. When I left the command tent, I happened to meet Brother Liu, who lived near the entrance to our lane, making his patrol. I could not wander freely through the camp, so I gave the clothes to him and departed. I walked home against the wind and snow. The yellow earth had become an endless field of white. Only by following footprints that had not yet been buried could I avoid losing the road. Before I had gone far, I heard a donkey bray. The neighboring auntie sat hunched on her wooden cart, her whole body covered in snow until she resembled a snowman. She called loudly. I do not know what madness struck that gate guard. He insisted that I leave quickly. If you had taken any longer, I truly would have gone without you. Warmth suddenly filled my heart. The dark mood caused by Li Wujin and Chen Linlong vanished completely. I hurried several steps and climbed onto the cart. Auntie, I still have a piece of mutton at home. Come drink soup with us later. Good. I will bring 2 radishes. There were still so many good people in the world. I had no intention of descending into the underworld with Li Wujin. After nightfall, I locked the windows and the main door securely. I climbed beneath the quilt and tucked it tightly around myself, until no cold air could enter, then settled down obediently. The moment I closed my eyes, footsteps crunched through the snow outside, followed by knocking at the main door. My body tensed. Out of habit, I reached for the scissors hidden beneath my pillow. The person outside seemed to sense my fear and hurriedly spoke. Tingqian, it is me. The familiar voice immediately dissolved my panic. I quickly put on an outer robe and ran in slippers to open the door. The tip of Xiao Qinghan's nose was red with cold. He did not even wear a straw cape. He had plainly run straight back from the camp. Why hurry home in the middle of the night? Has the enemy attacked? When he saw how thinly I was dressed, his entire face reddened. Perhaps he feared that the cold air from the doorway would chill me, so he closed the door and turned his back before speaking. Brother Liu, said the general, called for you. I turned my face away and interrupted him stiffly. He and I ended long ago. I will not disgrace the Xiao family. Sharpness had become my instinctive protection. Besides, the battle readiness left by the day's confrontations had not fully faded. When Xiao Qinghan spoke of Li Wujin, I assumed another person had come to blame me. But after living together so long, Xiao Qinghan immediately realized that I had misunderstood. Unable to turn around, he became so anxious that the truth burst from him. I was only afraid he bullied you, he continued. Since the general returned, the way he looks at me has been wrong. He even reassigned me to the right deputy position. I understand what he thinks. He believes I do not know when to advance or retreat. He believes that, for the sake of my future, I should offer you to him willingly. His voice grew firm. But you are not an object. You know how to compete, how to fight for what you need, how to feel pain, and how to cry. If you are unhappy, you will leave. Chen Tingchan, I do not know how I should keep you beside me. If I act too boldly, I fear frightening you. If I hesitate too much, I fear you will find me dull. Your love and hatred are both so clear, I truly do not know what to do. I stood beside Xiao Qinghan and watched his ears gradually turn red. Perhaps the room was too warm, because even his head seemed close to producing smoke. I wanted to laugh, yet felt too shy to do so. He truly understood me. I, Chen Tingchan, could love when I loved and let go when I let go. When I met someone I wanted, I would compete and fight for him. If I struck a wall, I would end the matter cleanly and let everyone be free. One thing I had said to Li Wujin that day was true. I was satisfied with my present life. I was satisfied, and Xiao Qinghan was plainly satisfied too. Since we were both satisfied, why pretend or remain shy? I reached out and hooked my fingers around Xiao Qinghan's belt. Xiao Qinghan, tomorrow I want to wear my hair like a married woman. When I woke the next morning, the quilt remained warm. My clothes had been folded neatly beside the bed, and the soup in the kitchen was still hot, only Xiao Qinghan was nowhere to be seen. Before I could say anything, he had fled like a shy maiden experiencing first love. He left only a note. There is much work in camp. I will return in 5 days. Wife, do not miss me. Then he slipped away without a sound. How shamelessly pleased with himself. Who would miss him? On the second day, I tossed my embroidery frame aside. My heart was restless and confused, like that of a girl who had only just learned what love was. That infuriating Xiao Qinghan had tasted a little sweetness and then fled. He certainly knew how to keep a person waiting. On the third day, the visitor I had been expecting turned out to be Lin Shengnan, her face filled with exhaustion. Since the previous day, Li Wujin had apparently been provoked by something. The snow had not even melted, yet he had begun drilling the troops with near madness. Even Lin Shengnan, fierce and skilled in battle, had suffered countless painful falls. As she spoke, she helped me chop firewood. Only after nearly finishing the entire pile did she sit down to talk. Your old Xiao has suffered the worst. The general makes him demonstrate everything. He even calls him out for combat practice and shows no mercy at all. I do not know how old Xiao offended him. When he comes home, his body will certainly be covered in bruises. Lin Shengnan shook her head. No, that is not right. You would not see them anyway. Her mouth moved faster than her eyes. The moment she glanced at my hair, she cried out, "Oh, there has been joyful news in this household." No wonder old Xiao has not stopped smiling for the past 2 days. Then you have seen enough. Remember it carefully. I hurriedly pushed a sweet into her mouth to silence her. Chewing the sweet, she sighed. Grandmother never lets the household prepare sweets for me. She says that once I grow accustomed to sweetness, I will no longer be able to endure bitterness. The last sweet I ate was the celebration candy distributed by the general's wife. At that, Lin Shengnan leaned closer and lowered her voice. There is something I truly cannot keep inside any longer. I have wanted to ask you for some time. Long ago, I heard that the general deeply loved a young woman in the capital, and that His Majesty granted them a marriage. By all reason, that woman should be the general's present wife. Yet no matter how I look at them, they do not seem loving at all. Since the general returned to West City, he has remained in camp. His wife has come to find him several times without even seeing his face, she continued. I have met her a few times, and the way she looks at me grows stranger each time. Once she even hinted that I should remove my armor and return home. Could she possibly regard me as an imagined rival? I burst out laughing. How did you answer her? Lin Shengnan snorted. I merely pulled out my long spear and she became frightened. That is why I cannot understand her. She is the general's wife. She should understand that it is her duty to lead the women and families of West City. If enemy troops arrive, who will stand as their support? If even my spear frightens her, would she not surrender the moment she saw the curved blades of the northern tribes? I had no wish to invite more trouble, so I quickly pointed to a tear in her sleeve. My needlework is no worse than that of the embroiderers in your Lin household. Shall I mend that for you? How strange life was. In the capital, whenever I heard people place my history upon Chen Linlang, I became so anxious that I lost sleep and appetite. I wished I could knock upon every door and explain the truth. If someone had told me then that one day I would no longer care about other people's misunderstandings, I would never have believed it. Yet after reaching West City, I did not want anyone to know those old matters. Time and experience were truly remarkable things. Lin Shengnan lowered her head in the direction I indicated and saw a small worn hole at the elbow of her outer robe, no larger than a fingernail. She immediately removed the robe and handed it to me, excited as a child. Embroider a flower for me. She usually wore garments decorated with eagles, so I had not expected such an endearing preference. Seeing me struggle to understand her request, Lin Shengnan said proudly, "You did not expect that, did you? Not only you, even my own family does not know I like flowers." Being a female general is not easy. The Lin family had produced 3 generations of prime ministers and was a truly illustrious clan. Unfortunately, by Lin Shengnan's generation, the number of male descendants had grown increasingly thin. The older generation aged while the younger had not yet matured. Fortune no longer seemed to favor the Lin family's sons. Yet Lin Shengnan, born a daughter, was the most intelligent of them all. Not one of the clan's young men could compare with her. Old Madame Lin originally wished to admit Lin Shengnan into the clan school so that she might pursue the path of a female official. Unexpectedly, the uncles who normally displayed perfect filial obedience before the old madam all turned against the idea. They claimed that allowing a woman into the school would pollute a place of learning. In truth, they feared outsiders learning that the Lin family had no worthy successor and needed a girl to support the household. How humiliating that would seem to them. As the saying went, even a starving camel was larger than a horse. Despite its decline, the Lin family still possessed considerable wealth. Old Madame Lin was also proud. If they refused Lin Shengnan entry to the clan school, then she would have her learn martial skills and earn distinction through the military path. Apart from the military examinations, the fastest road to advancement was achievement on the battlefield. Lin Shengnan had no respect for her uncle's hypocrisy. She asked old Madame Lin for help, concealed her identity, and entered the army as an ordinary soldier. Only after she captured the enemy commander alive did everyone discover that the large, quiet soldier was a woman. At that moment, the entire Lin family felt as though the sky had collapsed. They said to Lin Shengnan, "What does military merit matter? A woman who secretly enters the army has deceived the emperor." They even prepared an escape for themselves by placing every crime upon old Madame Lin. It was exactly what the Chen family later did to Chen Huairu. The difference was that Chen Huairu did not possess old Madame Lin's courage, and naturally she did not receive old Madame Lin's later fortune. The Lin family had produced 3 generations of prime ministers, yet its members still failed to understand the value of talent. To His Majesty, as long as someone possessed ability and could be used by the throne, many rules could yield. Lin Shengnan was fierce and brilliant in battle. She had captured a northern commander alive and was therefore a powerful deterrent to the northern tribes. Whether a cat was black or white did not matter. A cat that caught mice was a good cat. Thus Lin Shengnan became the first formally recognized female general of our dynasty. By then, her uncles could no longer easily share in her honor. Lin Shengnan established an independent household under her own name and brought old Madame Lin to West City to support her in old age. "Since I was small," Lin Shengnan said, "grandmother taught me to possess an iron will. She would not allow me to learn needlework. She said it was a woman's craft and feared that learning it would make me soft. I know she wanted what was best for me, and I always obeyed her. But I do not wish to erase my true self. I like eagles, and I like small flowers too. Both sides are part of who I am." She spoke calmly as if telling the story of another person, but my heart surged as I listened. If I had once envied her background, even that last fragile trace of jealousy disappeared completely. A woman like her deserved admiration. I cut a strand of pink embroidery thread. At the place where the hole had been, a begonia slowly appeared, vivid enough to seem alive. I handed the outer robe back to Lin Shengnan. "I truly admire you. Heavens, you are incredible." She snatched the robe and held up the begonia, examining it again and again with delight. "Am I really so capable?" I lowered my head. "This is only a woman's craft." "What are you saying?" Lin Shengnan objected loudly. "It is powerful precisely because it is a woman's craft. Something so intricate and beautiful deserves to be passed down for 10,000 years. You understand my talent, and now I understand yours." I insisted that this rare admirer stay for a meal. Unexpectedly, Lin Shengnan grimaced and refused. She had come only to steal a little rest from her work and complain about Chen Linlong's incomprehensible behavior. In the Lin household, she had no one with whom she could discuss such matters. She had to return to camp quickly. The general cannot continue drilling the troops like a madman. Every soldier is exhausted. Where will they find the strength to face an enemy? Lin Shengnan possessed sharp instincts and understood the habits of the northern tribes. She repeatedly advised Li Wujin to shift early into a defensive state and prepare against a surprise attack. Xiao Qinghan also submitted advice many times. Since Lin Shengnan repelled that small man detachment, the enemy had remained quietly nearby, like a beast waiting for an opening. But Li Wujin trusted his own judgment more. He believed the northern tribes lacked food and that beginning a war in harsh winter conditions would be the same as digging their own grave. Our own army was strong and well supplied. After resting for several years, it lacked recent combat practice. He believed this was precisely the time to correct that weakness before launching an offensive ourselves. Based upon Li Wujin's previous experience fighting the northern tribes, his arrangements were not unreasonable. But in those 3 years, the northern tribes had also changed commanders. The people of West City called the new leader the Red-Eyed General. His elder brother was the commander Lin Shengnan had once captured alive. Under Red-Eyed General's command, the entire northern army became more ruthless and vicious. If they lacked food, they stole it. After plundering the smaller tribes around them, what would they do if the bitter winter remained impossible to survive? West City possessed grain and houses. More than that, the city held mostly women and children. If the northern tribes broke through the shield of the western garrison army, they could pass the winter in comfort, reorganize their forces, and point their blades toward the central plains. Red-Eyed General was waiting for one weakness in our defense. Night fell. Snow filled the sky, the tiny flakes resembling grains of salt. It was Lin Shengnan's turn to stand watch, allowing Xiao Qinghan to return briefly to West City and rest. He poured hot water into a basin for me to soak my feet while telling me amusing events from the camp. Yet that night he seemed burdened. Only after I pressed him did he speak slowly. The general is too stubborn. My judgment differs from his. We have argued many times these past few days. Now I am not even permitted to enter his command tent. I became deeply uneasy. If anything happens at the front, those of you in the rear will be in danger, he said. Before he finished, someone pounded upon the courtyard gate. The messenger entered and immediately said, "Something has happened." The patrol unit fell into an ambush laid by Red-Eyed General. As Xiao Qinghan left, he hurriedly ordered me to lock every door and window. There are weapons hidden behind the kitchen stove. Use them to protect yourself if necessary. I watched darkness swallow his departing figure. Fear rose in my heart for no reason. Those accursed northern tribes, did they truly have to destroy the peaceful life I had fought so hard to obtain? After fear came boundless anger. I retrieved a long blade and sat beside the fire until dawn, guarding the house. West City was always the first place to learn news from the front. When hurried footsteps sounded outside, I immediately ran to the door and peered through the crack. Only after confirming they were not northern soldiers did I step out. Everyone in the street was moving toward the general's residence. Xiao Qinghan had told me that after a battle, soldiers' families had the right to learn what had happened. Those who died would be brought to the general's residence and prepared for burial before their relatives came to claim them. Every face was tense with uncertainty. Some people had already received word. They pulled black coffins behind them, wore mourning garments, and walked toward the residence while wiping tears. My heart pounded wildly. The long blade that had given me safety all night now became a staff supporting my trembling body. Suddenly, someone held me upright. A woman who lived near the entrance to our lane wore coarse mourning cloth, tears filling her eyes. "Come, younger sister. Go with me to bring Brother Liu home." It was the first time I had crossed the gate of the general's residence since arriving in West City. I had visited the Li family's general residence in the capital countless times. Pavilions, towers, artificial hills, and rare stones stood everywhere, displaying the household's deep foundation. The general's residence in West City was as empty as a burial ground. And was it not a burial ground that day? Before I entered, the sound of weeping already shook the compound. Across the vast courtyard, more than 100 bodies wrapped in white cloth lay in silence. Li Wujin still wore his armor. Exhausted, he sat before the main hall. Chen Linlang had no choice but to remain beside him, but she crouched timidly behind his back. To the left stood Lin Shengnan, her expression dark. My panicked gaze swept through the courtyard. Not there, not there, not there. Where was Xiao Qinghan? My legs weakened as I forced myself past one covered form after another. Not him, not him, not him. Just as I began to breathe again, a terrible cry sounded beside me. A woman clutched a blood-stained bundle of padded clothing and sobbed for her son, grieving that the enemy had left her so little to bring home. Only then did I learn the truth. Under Red-Eyed General, The northern tribes had tamed a pack of snow wolves and used them as mounts in battle. Their earlier mounted provocations had been intended to mislead our army about their true strength. Snow wolves could see extremely well at night and were ideally suited to nocturnal attacks. The previous night, the wind had been fierce and the snow heavy. By the time the guards heard the wolves, it was too late. Warhorses naturally feared carnivorous wolves. The bravest mounts could still charge several steps, while weaker ones hesitated. On a battlefield, even a moment of hesitation could cost a life. The Western garrison's cavalry, victorious through countless battles, was broken apart almost instantly. The scent of blood drove the wolves into a frenzy, and many soldiers were badly mauled. Li Wujin's severe training had already left the soldiers exhausted, causing the losses to rise dramatically. Only the use of fire cannons frightened the wolves into retreat. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. The enemy lost only 2 snow wolves and 15 men. The Western garrison army suffered a crushing defeat. My legs gave way and I sank toward the ground. Lin Shengnan hurried over and supported me. Old Xiao is alive. The commander and I are both here, so he had to remain at the front to guard against another attack. Tears filled my eyes. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to believe someone lost and then receive him back. Before I could settle my emotions, a messenger rushed through the gate. Report. The northern raiders sent a message. Li Wujin lifted his eyes. The messenger glanced at Lin Shengnan and spoke through clenched teeth. Red-eyed general says the northern army is protected by snow wolves, and that our forces have no chance of victory. If the court cedes West City to them, they will spare the women and children. But if they must break through the city themselves, every family member of the Western garrison army will become prey to the wolves. With each word, Li Wujin's face grew darker. Chen Linlong had never seen so many dead before. She had long since become terrified. Clutching her belly, she staggered to Li Wujin's feet. General, it is only one city. Give it to them. You must think of our child. Can you truly watch him perish here? The instant she finished, the relatives who had just lost husbands and sons raised their heads together, their bitter, furious eyes fixed upon her. Chen Linlong hurriedly hid behind Li Wujin again. Out of respect for him, no one cursed her aloud. Her interruption left the messenger choking upon his remaining words. Li Wujin no longer had the attention to reprimand Chen Linlong. He ordered coldly, "Continue." The messenger closed his eyes and spoke with hatred. They have given us 3 days. They will not prevent the soldiers' families from evacuating the city, but Deputy General Lin must remain. Red-eyed General demands that she enter a ghost marriage with his dead elder brother, in revenge for the humiliation of his brother's capture. After the defeat and the terrifying appearance of the snow wolves, the army's morale had plainly fallen. Even if a military report was sent to the court, the round journey alone would take longer than 3 days. The situation was urgent. Everything depended upon Li Wujin's decision. No one dared gamble the next battle upon uncertain victory. Not one person left the general's residence. All insisted upon remaining until Li Wujin made his decision. I stood outside the main hall and heard arguing within. First came Chen Linlang's pleading voice. General, Lin Xingnan must marry eventually. If sacrificing her alone can save an entire city, why will you not agree? Such words were not surprising from her. To protect herself, she had once abandoned me. Now pushing Lin Shengnan home she already disliked out to die, placed no burden upon her conscience. One deputy general sprang to his feet and cursed, "Bah! If you were not the general's wife, and one of my subordinates dared speak such words that weakened morale, I would have cut him down already." Chen Linlong became angry too. "Why are you so fierce with me? Then go fight! I was not the one who lost this battle. Why shout at me?" She plainly did not understand how closely the defeat was connected to the commanding general. Every sentence she threw back at the deputy general stepped upon Li Wujin's nearly severed nerves. Without warning, Li Wujin struck her across the face and sent her tumbling to the floor, showing no concern for her pregnancy. "Ignorant woman, return to the inner residence. There is no place here for you to speak." Li Wujin had always treated her coldly, but he had never openly struck her before. Humiliated before so many people, Chen Linlong lost control completely. She pointed at Lin Shengnan and screamed through tears. I knew something was wrong. First Chen Tingchan, now Lin Shengnan. How many women are hidden in your heart? Lin Shengnan, who had remained silent until then, slammed the table and roared, "You mad woman! How can you say such a thing? Chen Tingchan is your own younger sister, yet you dare throw any filth upon others and accuse the general of desiring his subordinate's wife. You may possess no shame, but the Western garrison army still needs its honor." Chen Linlong attempted to answer, But Li Wujin glanced at her. A single look could contain a vast amount of meaning. She saw that his eyes were now filled with murderous anger. His romantic scandal could surface at any other time, but at that moment he could not be suspected of coveting a subordinate's wife. That single accusation could be enough for the already wavering Western garrison army to remove him from command. "Guards," Li Wujin said, suppressing his fury. "Madame's madness has returned. Take her away and watch her closely." They silenced Chen Linlong and dragged her away. Because she could not control her mouth, she would likely never again be allowed to appear before outsiders. The wealth and status she had schemed so hard to obtain would become a prison holding her for life. Whether anyone cared about the uproar no longer mattered to me. I wanted only to know the final decision. Without Chen Linlong's interference, a strange silence filled the hall. The matter concerned Lin Shengnan's life. No one dared propose either continuing the fight or yielding. Li Wujin asked, "Lin Shengnan, what do you think?" Lin Shengnan stared at the blue floor tiles for a long time. Sweat filled my palms and my mind went blank. At last, she spoke slowly. "The northern tribes are treacherous. If they swallow West City, they will only grow greedy for the next city. Are we supposed to yield again and again? Once they occupy West City, they will become even stronger than they are now. We cannot raise a tiger that will later devour us." She lifted her long spear and stood before Li Wujin, her proud spine straight. "General, order the women and children to withdraw from West City. I captured his elder brother once and I can capture that old Redded bandit as well. This subordinate requests permission to fight. I swear upon my life that the northern raiders will not advance a single step into West City." Lin Shengnan had volunteered to fight again, which was also what Li Wujin wished. But allowing the families to withdraw clearly broke military law. Every soldier with relatives in the city looked earnestly toward him, waiting for his answer. At that moment, a voice sounded from outside the hall. "This official's wife refuses to live as a coward. I am willing to remain and share West City's life or death." I heard the words leave my own mouth. "I refuse to live as a coward. I am willing to remain and share West City's fate." I entered the main hall and stood behind Lin Shengnan. The smoke of battle had not yet faded, and the soldiers' remains in the courtyard had not even grown cold. How could we abandon the city and flee? "I do not understand military strategy," I continued. "But I know that my life is part of the drumbeat that sustains my husband, Xiaoqing Han. If I do not retreat, he will not retreat. In West City, these hands have mended torn clothing and embroidered military banners. They can hold a needle, and they can lift a broken blade. I may be a woman, but I cannot step across Deputy General Lin's bones in exchange for a few days of borrowed peace." I understood at last. Looking at the wavering faces around me, I finally grasped what Lin Shengnan had felt when she judged Chen Linlong. As the commanding general's wife, Chen Linlong should have possessed the courage to lead the women of West City. Someone had to stand first. Just as the soldiers needed Lin Shengnan to volunteer for battle, the families needed someone to declare that they would remain. Chen Linlong could not rise to the moment. Then I, as the deputy general's wife, would stand in her place and request to defend the city. My standing there was meant to extinguish the thought of desertion in those who still hesitated. The first people to answer me were the relatives of the fallen soldiers in the courtyard. "We are willing to follow Madame Xiao and defend West City." They wished they could take up blades themselves and avenge their families. Often, a wave of shared emotion had to sweep through a crowd before people could make such a decision. That was what we called morale. As the cries to defend West City grew louder, the soldiers inside the hall also stepped forward one after another to request battle. They swore to destroy the northern forces and avenge the brothers who had fallen. Li Wujin looked at me deeply. For the first time, true regret appeared in his eyes. "Generals, hear my command. Present. In 3 days I want Red-Eyed General defeated, with proof of his fall displayed upon our flagpole. We will honor the spirits of our fallen brothers with this victory." What could be prepared in 3 days? Enough time for every woman and child to remain awake through the nights repairing the Western garrison soldiers' battle robes. Enough time for us to gather the weapons kept for self-defense and prepare to fight desperately if the walls were breached. Enough time for Xiaoqing Han to come see me once and tell me that I was his pride. He held my hand as we sat together in the courtyard. There was no confusion left in his eyes. "Ting Chan, I finally understand. What my family and I have always protected is the ordinary people's right to live peacefully from generation to generation. If I can protect you and people like you, that is enough." By then, the excitement of the moment had settled. Watching Xiaoqing Han's back as he returned to the front, sorrow rose within me. I did not know whether we would meet again after 3 days. whether we would be separated by life and death, or whether we would enter the underworld together. The 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The Northern Army began forming a siege around West City. Unexpectedly, before dawn, Li Wujin asked to see me once more. I suddenly realized that I no longer knew how to describe my feelings for him. It was not hatred, and it was certainly not love. His lofty manner could no longer wound me, because my worth no longer required anyone else's approval. This was the person I had always wished to become. Li Wujin, by contrast, remained the one unable to let go. I truly regret it, he said. I was young and arrogant, and I treated you lightly as well. He stood in my small courtyard, his golden armor entirely out of place against the plain surroundings. Li Wujin looked at me, then raised his head toward the sky. The weather is good today, no wind, no snow. It is an auspicious sign, I said. Xiao Qinghan once told me a saying from West City: our eyes grow in front because people must walk forward. Today I return those words to the general. Do not remain trapped in the past, at least leave those memories a little dignity. Li Wujin remained silent for a long time. Then he said, I came today to say farewell. I submitted a memorial to the court describing what you said and did 3 days ago. Whether this battle ends in victory or defeat, the court will grant you an official lady's title. He turned and walked toward the door. This has nothing to do with my guilt. It is something you deserve. This time, Li Wujin did not dare make the decision alone. The Western Garrison Army prepared in advance for the snow wolves that had caused such terrible losses in the previous battle. They carried fresh meat secured to the backs of selected war horses. Snow wolves still possessed more wild instinct than obedience and could not resist the scent. When the wolves broke formation to seize the bait, Western garrison troops attacked from both flanks, striking at the wolves' eyes first and then the riders. The battle ended in a great victory. Yet throughout the city, no one cheered. Lin Shengnan had died. Many soldiers had watched the snow wolves overwhelm their comrades during the previous battle. The cries of those brothers still echoed in their memories. It would have been a lie to say they felt no fear. Once fear of battle took root, the collapse of the entire army would become only a matter of time. Red-eyed General even claimed that his dead brother had appeared in a dream and demanded that Lin Shengnan be shared with the northern warriors. His shameless words ignited the Western garrison soldiers' fury, but fury alone was not enough to erase fear. Lin Shengnan raised her spear and charged alone at the front. With one thrust, she knocked the first enemy rider aside. She struck down a snow wolf that lunged toward her, but soon she disappeared amid the wolves and curved blades surrounding her. The last words the Western Garrison Army heard from her were, "Avenge me." Lin Shengnan sacrificed herself to rally the army beneath its banner. Every soldier's eyes turned red. Li Wujin personally led the central force in a direct charge. Xiao Qinghan led troops around both flanks to surround the enemy. The northern soldiers watched their numbers fall, while the western garrison's momentum pressed forward like mountains and rising seas. Even the snow wolves lost their terror. The intended display on the flagpole never took place. Red-eyed General and the lead wolf were killed during the charge. This was my second visit to the general's residence in West City, but the first time I met old Madame Lin. She wore the formal robes of an honored imperial lady. Her hair was completely white, yet her back remained straight. The tiger-headed cane in her hand seemed almost ornamental. Lin Shengnan had once told me that her grandmother's lower back had been severely injured. Whenever the sky turned dark or rain approached, the pain became so severe that she could neither sit nor stand comfortably. Yet that day, old Madame Lin still forced herself to come and receive her granddaughter home. I could not bear to look directly at Lin Shengnan. The soldiers recovered only part of her remains from the battlefield, yet her hand was still locked around her long spear. Even then, no one could remove it. Old Madame Lin said, "Let the spear be buried with my child. Below the earth she can still kill enemies, and no one will be able to bully her." After Lin Shengnan was buried, the general's residence closed its gates. Because Li Wujin's command mistakes had caused the earlier defeat, the court used the opportunity to strip away much of his military authority. Even though West City was ultimately defended, the emperor was old. Li Wujin was young and ambitious. Losing only his military power was already fortunate. He was removed as commander of the Western Garrison Army. It was said the Li family arranged a minor idle post for him in the capital. After returning to submit his report, he could take office. The person happiest to leave West City was Chen Linlang. She sat in the carriage laughing loudly with her maid, making no effort to conceal her excitement. Even though her belly was already large, she preferred the jolting road to remaining in West City for one more day. She had never enjoyed a single day of glory there, and her reputation had completely rotted. A cook from the general's residence said that throughout the 3 days of preparation for battle, Chen Linlong cursed Lin Shengnan every day for insisting upon war, instead of sacrificing herself to save everyone. She had even packed her luggage and stolen Li Wujin's command token, waiting only for him to leave the residence, so that she could secretly flee West City and save her own life. "Those wolves are terrifying," she had said. "The people who die outside are left in a miserable state. I am not foolish enough to die with them. It would be best if West City fell and that wretch Chen Tingchan were devoured by the wolves." The cook had overheard every word and repeated them vividly. Because of that, no one came to see Chen Linlang off. Not one person stood near her carriage. Everyone feared that merely standing close would make others think them the same kind of madwoman. Of course, no one reminded her that every laugh she gave over returning to the capital and every insult she threw at the people of West City had been heard clearly by Li Wujin. Xiao Qinghan and I sat on a roof and watched the spectacle. He looked at Li Wujin's tightly clenched face and grimaced. How humiliating. When Li Wujin first brought Chen Linlong to West City, he had arrived in magnificent style. The carriage canopy was splendid, and the bridal procession stretched for 10 li. He had deliberately passed my door, hoping to make me jealous and fill me with regret. Now that he was leaving, I neither went to see him off nor cared to watch. Perhaps my indifference even allowed him to breathe more easily. The gates of West City opened. After Li Wujin's party disappeared into the distance, someone in the crowd laughed first. A moment later, the entire crowd erupted into laughter. At last, the sound swept away some of the darkness that had covered the city for days. Among the people, I suddenly saw a familiar face, Hong Yu. Before the new commanding general arrived to assume his post, every matter concerning the Western Garrison Army was temporarily handled by Xiao Qinghan. He was so busy that his feet scarcely touched the ground. Fortunately, Hong Yu's arrival in West City gave me something else to occupy my days. When she saw that I could now light a stove and cook efficiently, she was immensely pleased. Good. My miss will not starve to death from now on. That night, Hong Yu and I shared one bed. I acted spoiled and begged her to tell me where she had gone and what she had done after leaving me. She stared at the bed curtains and remained silent for a long time before speaking softly. "I went to avenge concubine Bai." The concubine she meant was, of course, my birth mother, who had a blood debt with my mother. The answer was already obvious. Hong Yu bent her fingers one by one, her voice filled with grievance. How could my gu insects have turned against her? When Master Chen favored her most, he discovered that she possessed gu insects. He was afraid, but he wished to keep his own hands clean. So he remembered the lawful wife he had neglected for so long. She continued, Madame Chen relied upon her status as the principal wife and forced your mother to drink medicine mixed with cinnabar every day. Even gu women like us, whose bodies carry many poisons, fear such a substance. How could concubine Bai have endured it? I had never known any of this. This time, after descending the mountain and leaving my sect, I went directly to the capital. Hong Yu said, I wanted them to learn what true gu arts are. Master Chen now suffers from a heart-piercing gu. Every night he endures terrible pain. Madame Chen has gone mad. She hides in her room every day and screams that concubine Bai has returned to take revenge upon her. With the two people who controlled Chen Manor reduced to that state, my brothers immediately tore away their masks of brotherly harmony and began fighting over the family property. Third sister took advantage of the chaos and added fuel to the fire. She publicly revealed her relationship with Yu Lang. My father became utterly disappointed in his sons. In the end, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and agree to third sister's marriage. After all his sons combined could not compare with third sister's beloved scholar Yu, who had passed the provincial examination. He sowed the wind and reaped the storm, I commented. Hong Yu took my hand and placed a small box in my palm. I opened it. Inside, two gu insects rested curled around one another. Love gu, Hong Yu said. My greatest purpose in returning to my sect was to bring this pair back for you. Li Wujin once treated you with such devotion, yet he still married Chen Linlong in the end. Today at the city gate, I saw that the boy Xiao Qinghan has only you in his eyes. This is the perfect opportunity to use the love gu on both of you. She explained, if he betrays you in the future, he will suffer severe pain. Once love gu is used, two lovers understand one another's hearts and can no longer conceal anything. The one whose heart changes will be tormented by the love gu day and night. Had I still been the old Chen Tingchan, I might have accepted without hesitation. At that time, I possessed no sense of safety. I desperately needed some external power to protect my interests. But the present Chen Tingchan no longer needed it. I could give myself safety. Xiao Qinghan loved me because I was worthy of love. If he changed one day, it would mean only that our fate together had ended. It would be his lack of blessing, not proof that I was not good enough. I was strong enough now to give myself everything I wanted. I closed the box and pushed it back toward Hongyu. I no longer need love goo. Hongyu looked at me for a long time, then smiled. Good, my miss has truly grown up. The new commanding general soon arrived in West City. He brought not only a new deputy general, but also an appointment for Xiao Qinghan. The Western Garrison Army was about to undergo a major restructuring. Although the new commander greatly admired Xiao Qinghan, the deputy general's prestige in West City was too high. That was extremely unfavorable to the new commander's ability to control the army. Xiao Qinghan was appointed commander of the capital patrol camp. He rose from a lower 4th-rank military post to a full 4th-rank office and was ordered to depart immediately to assume his duties. Unexpectedly, after circling so far, I was returning to the capital. Before leaving West City, Xiao Qinghan and I went together to pay our respects at Lin Shengnan's grave. Old Madame Lin had planted flowers all around it. Xiao Qinghan told me that before riding out to battle, Lin Shengnan had left a final letter. She had decided long before the fighting began that she would sacrifice herself to rally the army. The letter contained only one line. Grandmother, I want to live in a sea of flowers. I cried and laughed at the same time. She loved eagles and she loved little flowers. That was Lin Shengnan. 2 people had come to West City, and 2 people would return to the capital. Seeing that I no longer depended upon goo insects, Hongyu bid me farewell again. This time I did not know when we would meet next. She said that only after descending the mountain did she realize how small she was. She wished to restore her sect, and the road before her remained very long. Our return to the capital was no longer as hurried as our journey west. Xiao Qinghan and I traveled leisurely, enjoying the scenery along the way. By the time we passed through the capital gates, a month had gone by. We did not need to ask after the rumors. They entered our ears on their own. Li Wujin and Chen Linlong had once been praised as a talented man and a beautiful woman, the very embodiment of love. Now they had caused the noble consort, who had personally inscribed a match made by heaven, to lose all face. Chen Linlong miscarried on the journey back to the capital. Upon reaching the city, she found the Chen family in total chaos, and did not even receive proper time to recover. From then onward, she suffered lasting illness. An imperial marriage could not be dissolved casually. But as soon as Li Wujin returned to the capital, he began spending his days in houses of pleasure. The inscription "a match made by heaven" became a joke about a heaven-matched pair of bitter enemies. This completely offended the noble consort's faction. The once renowned young general could no longer raise his head beneath the pressure of so many forces. Not long afterward, for reasons no one knew, the old matter of Chen Huairou replacing her sister in the bridal sedan resurfaced. This time, Li Wujin no longer possessed the power to reverse the situation. The Li family's long-standing enemies immediately seized the opportunity and submitted memorials accusing Li Wujin and the Chen family of deceiving the emperor. That memorial suited the emperor's intentions perfectly. He had long wished to weaken the power of the ancient aristocratic clans and elevate the rising new nobility. This opportunity allowed him to use the Li family as the first target. Li Wujin lost even the idle office arranged for him. Not only he, but the next 3 generations of the Li family were forbidden from taking the imperial examinations or joining the army. The most outstanding man of the Li family's generation had been dismissed. The rest could only wait for the great tree to rot slowly from within. Later came news that Chen Linlong had gone mad. As for the future awaiting Xiao Qinghan and me, many trials still lay ahead. He was about to be drawn into a court filled with hidden currents and treacherous schemes. My life would no longer remain peaceful either. But I was not afraid. Even if the road ahead was as deep as an abyss, I would continue walking forward. Thank you for supporting Panda. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories. Now, let's begin story 2. My name is Su Dingfang, and I am the Chancellor of the current dynasty. Anyone in the realm who hears my name immediately imagines a man as imposing and immovable as a mountain, deep and impossible to fathom. I stand beneath only one man and above 10,000. My influence dominates both court and country, and I can summon wind and rain throughout the vast capital. Civil officials lower their heads and meekly clear a path when they see me. Military officials salute while breaking into a cold sweat. If I so much as sneeze in the emperor's study, the Minister of Revenue drops to his knees and starts checking every account book from the beginning. If I narrow my eyes and frown, all 6 ministries need calming tea and 3 sleepless nights. In the eyes of the entire court, I'm a crafty old fox, a cold-blooded treacherous minister, and an insurmountable mountain. Inspiring, all-powerful, and capable of blotting out the sky with one hand. That is who I am at court. But it is only a magnificent shell. The moment I cross the threshold of the Chancellor's residence and remove my purple official robe embroidered with the powerful python motif, I immediately turn into a slave. Yes, you heard correctly. A slave with not a shred of dignity left, one who willingly sold himself and puts his master above all else every day. My master is none other than a tiny soft little creature who smells of warm milk and has 2 plump cheeks like honey peaches. She is my most precious treasure, Sunyantong, whose childhood name is Tongtong. She has just turned 6 this year. My Tongtong is a little fairy descended from heaven. Her eyes are large, round, dark, and bright as stars. Even a few luminous pearls in the emperor's treasury were not fit to carry her shoes, let alone compare with a single blink of hers. Whenever she toddles toward me on her short little legs, throws open her arms, and cries, "Daddy, give me a piggyback ride," I swear before heaven and earth that even if the emperor put a blade to my neck and demanded this old life, I would offer it with both hands. If she felt cold, I would even tear up confidential state memorials and use them to fan the stove while roasting sweet potatoes for her. I protected Tang Tang as though she were a fragile egg, wrapping her in silk and brocade. I wished I could build a golden cage and hide her safely inside it. I had spent my entire life calculating against everyone under heaven, yet despite all my schemes, I never foresaw that one day my family's finest little cabbage, still tender and nowhere near grown, would catch the eye of a royal pig. This whole cursed affair began at the Mid-Autumn Palace banquet last month. That evening His Majesty held a moon-viewing feast for the court. At first, I absolutely refused to bring Tong Tong. The palace was full of filthy plots and schemes. How could such a place be worthy of the soles of my daughter's plum blossom embroidered shoes? But my wife reminded me that it was a festival of family reunion, and that the Empress had specifically requested that the officials bring their families. I had no choice but to compromise. I took my wife, my eldest son Su Yan, and my precious Tang Tang into the palace. At the height of the banquet, I had my sleeves rolled up and was locked in a fierce verbal battle with the old Minister of War over the national defense budget. After defeating him in 3 rounds of argument, and leaving his face scarlet with fury, I turned around smugly, intending to place a piece of sticky rice cake in my daughter's bowl. But Tang Tang had vanished from the chair beside me. The rice cake fell from my chopsticks and landed on the table with a soft thud. In horror, I flung down my wine cup, shattering it on the floor. My blood pressure surged so violently that I nearly grabbed the Minister of War by the collar and roared at him. "Where is my daughter? Where is my little cabbage?" My shout startled the entire banquet. The emperor, who had been raising his cup, nearly choked on his wine. I immediately mobilized every trusted guard under my command and ordered them to turn the entire palace upside down. I swore inwardly that if Tang Tong had suffered so much as a scratch, I would burn the imperial garden to the ground. Then the emperor, the guards, and I hurried around a secluded corner behind an ornamental rockery, and saw a scene that nearly ruptured a blood vessel in my brain. Beneath a tree sat His Highness the Crown Prince. The 13-year-old boy was normally as cold as a 1,000-year-old glacier, and was notorious as an old soul in a young body, the most difficult person to serve in the entire palace. Yet now he was sitting directly on the ground, his eyes reddened and filled with stubborn tears. I had heard that it was the death anniversary of the late Empress. The brat had probably hidden there to cry because he missed his mother. And my precious Tang Tang, the little fairy of my heart, the gold and silver treasure of the Su residence, was stretching out one tiny pale hand and awkwardly standing on tiptoe to wipe his tears. "Hey big brother, why are you crying?" Tang Tang's clear, sweet voice poured through the quiet autumn night like honey. The young crown prince jerked his head up and glared at her. He tried to look imposing and ferocious, like a wolf cub cornered against a wall. "Who are you? Who allowed you to wander around here? This is a forbidden part of the palace. Do you believe I could have someone drag you away and punish you with a beating? Heavens above! He dared threaten to have my daughter beaten." I ground my teeth and nearly snatched the sword from the guard beside me so I could charge out and cut that royal pig into 8 pieces. But my Tang Tang was not frightened in the least. She planted her hands on her hips, proudly thrust out her round little belly and pursed her tiny mouth. "I am Tang Tang. My daddy says only children who wet the bed sneak into corners to cry. You're already so big, and you're wearing such beautiful clothes, but you still wet the bed? How embarrassing." Hidden behind the rockery, my knees went weak. I hurriedly covered my mouth to keep from choking and spitting blood with laughter. My child, that was an offense against the heir to the throne. Of all the people you could tease, why expose the crown prince as a bedwetter? The crown prince had been struck squarely in his pride by a 6-year-old child. He had not actually wet the bed, but embarrassment still turned his face red all the way to his ears. I could not tell whether it was from humiliation or fury. He stammered, preparing to scold her, but before he could speak, my Tang reached into the rabbit-shaped brocade pouch at her waist. She pulled out a gleaming piece of malt candy and held it beneath his nose. "This is very pretty. You miss your mother, don't you?" Her voice suddenly softened with remarkable gentleness. She pressed the candy into the crown prince's hand. "Here, this is for you. When you eat something sweet, your heart won't taste bitter anymore, and you won't feel sad. Don't cry. Tang will make a pinky promise not to tell anyone that you wet the bed." The translucent candy glittered in the moonlight, and together with my daughter's bright, guileless smile, it struck like a bolt of lightning. That bolt did not merely shatter the solid defenses around the lonely crown prince's heart. It also struck directly into the dark, calculating scheme forming in the mind of the emperor, who was hiding beside me and watching the whole thing. His Majesty stroked his beard, his eyes shining as though he had discovered gold. He turned toward me and slapped my shoulder so hard that I nearly fell flat on my face. "Beloved Minister Su, you have raised your daughter wonderfully. She managed to coax even that stubborn, unfilial son of mine, and she already knows how to win people over with candy. Ha ha ha. Good, very good." The moment I heard the word good, an icy chill ran down my spine. Large and small beads of sweat poured out together, soaking even my inner robe. Indeed, ill omens are never absent from this world. They merely arrive sooner or later. Only 3 days afterward, the emperor's trusted chief eunuch crossed the threshold of my residence carrying an imperial decree and wearing a delighted expression. Behind him marched 2 rows of imperial guards bearing countless dazzling rewards. My entire family knelt in the main hall to receive the decree, but a terrible premonition made my heart pound like a war drum. By the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees, the crown prince has now reached the age of formal study and requires a companion to learn and train beside him each day. Su Yan, eldest son of Chancellor Su, is hereby ordered to enter the palace and serve as the crown prince's study companion. At that point, I breathed a sigh of relief. Taking 13-year-old Su Yan away to serve the crown prince was perfectly acceptable. Let the boy endure some hardship in the palace and temper that arrogant nature of his. But in the next instant, the eunuch's words struck my skull like a hammer. Furthermore, Su Yan's younger sister, Su Niantong, has been found pure-hearted, of auspicious appearance, clever and quick-witted. By special imperial favor, she is permitted to enter the palace as a fellow student. They are to pack their belongings and move into the palace in 2 days. Respect this decree. I stood frozen in the brick courtyard. My ears rang as though thousands of bees were building nests inside them. Sparks burst before my eyes and my heart stopped for 3 full beats. What? Taking Su Yan was one thing, but why had they added my 6-year-old daughter as well? Was this a buy-one-get-one-free offer? Some compulsory family package? This was outrageous. Shameless. Utterly shameless. That old emperor clearly wanted to steal my cabbage and take it home so his pig could practice rooting around it. The chief eunuch had just reined in his simpering smile and opened his mouth to ask the chancellor to accept the decree when I exploded. I no longer cared about preserving the dignity of the foremost power in the court. I charged toward the thickest wooden pillar in the center of the main hall, spread both arms around it, wrapped my legs around the trunk, and clung there without touching the floor. Then I began to howl and throw a tantrum. No, absolutely not. I screamed until I ran out of breath, tears and mucus covering my face while my hands pounded against the brick floor. Eunuch, take this decree back and stuff it into the emperor's hands. My daughter is only 6 years old. 6, do you understand? She has barely been weaned. What if she cannot eat or sleep properly in that inner palace where people devour one another without leaving bones behind? What if she cannot adjust to a strange bed? What if those little eunuchs and palace maids glare at her or bully her? I will not let her go. I would rather strip off my official robe and hat, resign, return home to farm, and shovel buffalo dung for the rest of my life. The chief eunuch retreated 3 steps in fright and nearly stumbled. Chancellor Su, please preserve some decorum. This is an imperial decree. What you are saying is grossly treasonous. Decorum, my foot. If someone steals my cabbage, what use is this damned dignity? Even the emperor has no right to rob me of my daughter. While I was wailing miserably, my rebellious son Su Yan walked out in a brocade robe. He folded his arms over his chest. Tall, slender, and composed, he looked down at his father rolling on the floor with utter helplessness and contempt. "Father, can you stand up? Your clothes are filthy. You're embarrassing the Chancellor's residence." Su Yan clicked his tongue and sighed like a weary old man. "I am 13. I know martial arts, I am educated, and I am well versed in the classics. If my little sister enters the palace with me, I can protect her. With me there, who would dare touch a single hair on Tong Tong's head?" I snapped my head up and glared at that disloyal son through bloodshot eyes. "What do you know? The palace is full of seasoned old foxes with schemes packed into their bellies. You might protect her from ordinary people, but can you protect her from that royal pig? Do you realize the crown prince is already drooling over our cabbage?" Su Yan shrugged and casually added, "If the crown prince dares harbor bad intentions toward Tang Tong, I will knock him unconscious, stuff him into a sack, and throw him into the pond beside the rockery. At worst, all 9 generations of our clan will be executed, and the entire family walk hand in hand to the underworld to greet our ancestors. What is there to fear? Ancestors above, who sent this rebellious son into my household?" How could he talk about assaulting the crown prince as calmly as if he were casually inviting someone out for a meal? Just as father and son were about to slaughter each other, Tang Tang toddled out from the inner courtyard. She wore a pale pink silk dress embroidered with flowers, and her hair was gathered into 2 little garlic bulb buns that bobbed with every step. When she saw me on the ground hugging the pillar, she hurried over in alarm. Her tiny soft hand pinched my tear-soaked cheek. "Daddy, what happened? Does your tummy hurt? Are you sick?" She blinked her long, curling lashes with innocent concern. "Don't be afraid, Daddy. Tang Tang will be good when she goes into the palace to study. In the afternoon, Tong Tong will ask the imperial kitchen for sweet candy and bring it home for you. Tong Tong will protect Big Brother too. If anyone bullies him, Tong Tong will bite them." My heart melted into a puddle and at the same time ached as though 10,000 arrows had pierced it. Look at her. My daughter was so obedient, so kind, and so thoughtful. How could that forbidden palace, overflowing with blades and schemes, deserve even one of her sneezes? How could I bear to throw her into that gilded birdcage? I made up my mind. Even if I had to become a treacherous minister and defy the throne, I would not retreat. "No one is going. No one leaves this house." I swept my sleeve, sprang to my feet, and pointed directly at the chief eunuch. "Listen carefully. Return and inform His Majesty that I have suddenly contracted a grave illness. My limbs are weak, my head is spinning, and all my internal organs feel as though they are burning. From this very moment I, Su Dingfang, am officially paralyzed on one side. The Chancellor's residence will close its doors, refuse all visitors, withdraw from worldly affairs, and request 3 months of medical leave." Without waiting for anyone to respond, I bent down, swept Tang Tang into my arms, turned around, and fled into my chamber. Bang! The door slammed shut. Before the bewildered eyes of every servant in the residence, I fastened 3 layers of bolts. I would claim illness. I would even fake clinical death. Let me see how that old man in the dragon robe planned to drag my treasure out of my house. Early the next morning, I ordered every servant in the Chancellor's residence to hang a sign announcing that the Chancellor was critically ill and would receive no guests. The front gates were sealed, the rear entrance was bolted, and not even a fly would be allowed through to deliver a message. Then I returned to my chamber, rummaged through my wife's dressing table, and pulled out the box of expensive pearl powder that she cherished as much as her own life. Without hesitation, I scooped up a handful and plastered a thick layer over my face. I became ghastly pale, like a corpse that had gone without sleep for 500 years. Afraid that I still did not look miserable enough, I sent someone to scrape soot from the kitchen stove. I carefully painted 2 enormous dark circles beneath my eyes, and then applied waxy powder to make my otherwise flawless lips appear cracked. There I was, a powerful minister who had exhausted himself for the nation and its people, his very marrow dried up, barely breathing on his sickbed. I burrowed beneath a thick quilt, groaning weakly while waiting smugly for news from the palace. That rebellious son Su Yan walked in carrying a bowl of oat porridge. He stood beside the bed with folded arms, raised one eyebrow at my repulsive makeup, and watched the corners of his mouth twitch with contempt. "Father, your performance is excessive." He clicked his tongue and spoke in his usual old man-like tone. "The powder falling off your face is enough for the kitchen to need 3 steamed buns, and there is a piece of straw stuck in the soot beneath your eye." "Silence, you unfilial brat who only knows how to stab your father in the heart," I hissed, clutching the quilt. "Soon, people from the court will come to visit me. You had better cry convincingly, wail as loudly as you can." Tears and mucus running together would be ideal. If you expose me and Tang Tong is taken away, I will cut off your allowance for 3 years and send you into the streets to beg. Just then, Tang Tong came toddling inside. She carried a tiny wet cloth and climbed nimbly onto the edge of the bed. The moment she saw my miserable appearance, her eyes reddened and large tears began to fall. "Daddy, are you very sick? Where does it hurt? Tong Tang will blow on it for you. Puff puff and the pain will go away." Sobbing, she clumsily wiped my face with the damp cloth. The pearl powder and stove soot smeared together, turning my face into a patchy swamp. I did not care. My heart was melting. I pulled my daughter into my arms, my own old eyes filling with tears. "Do not worry. Daddy will not die. Daddy is merely using the supreme wisdom of a genius statesman to protect you from the claws of those royal capitalists. Anyone who dares steal my Tong Tang will have to fight me to the death." Just as father and daughter were making grand, eternal vows to each other, hurried footsteps sounded outside, followed by Eunuch Cao's sharp announcement. "Deputy Director Chen of the Imperial Medical Bureau has arrived by Imperial command to examine Chancellor Su." I jumped, dropped flat onto the bed, squeezed my eyes shut, and began to moan feebly. "Oh, I am dying. My chest hurts. My head is spinning." The door opened. An old Imperial physician Chen entered. He did not feel my pulse. He did not even lift my eyelids to examine my complexion. Instead, he immediately waved for the 2 young eunuchs behind him to carry something forward. I opened my eyes a crack and peeked. My stomach instantly churned in horror. It was not a medicine bowl. It was a wash basin filled to the brim with thick black liquid that bubbled like mud in a dead swamp and released a smell that was difficult to describe. Imagine long fermented buffalo dung mixed with a bitter Coptis decoction and boiled together. "His Majesty has issued an order," Imperial Physician Chen said, stroking his silver beard while the corners of his mouth twitched with suppressed laughter. He tapped the side of the basin. "Chancellor Su has worked tirelessly for the country and its people, and has unfortunately fallen so gravely ill that his limbs are weak and half his body is paralyzed. His Majesty is deeply distressed and did not sleep last night. He personally ordered this official to stay awake and prepare an entire basin of 9 dense One Life Supreme Restorative Decoction." The old physician ran his hand over the rim, his tone full of menace. "His Majesty's verbal command states that this medicine is a national treasure. The Chancellor must drink every drop. Once it is finished, even a man paralyzed from head to toe will leap to his feet. If the Chancellor is too ill to drink, His Majesty will suspend court and personally come with the Crown Prince to feed it to you at your bedside." At the words, "Come with the Crown Prince," every hair on my body stood upright. That sinister old emperor was trying to murder a minister. I knew perfectly well that if he brought the Crown Prince here under the excuse of visiting the sick, they would simply carry Tang Tang away. What is in this medicine?" I asked weakly, pointing at the foul-smelling basin with a trembling finger. "Nothing remarkable," Imperial Physician Chen replied calmly. "A large dose of Coptis, combined with bear bile, Tongkat Ali root, and a little white horse urine to guide the medicine." Horse urine? I stared at the basin and then at my little daughter, who stood beside me blinking innocently. Tang Tang tugged my sleeve encouragingly. "Daddy, drink your medicine so you can get better. After you finish, you can have sweet candy. For my little cabbage, I would drink it." Grinding my teeth, I struggled upright, shut my eyes, lifted the basin with both hands, and poured it down my throat. The bitterness tore through my heart and liver. It was so bitter that my soul seemed to leave my body and fly into the 9th heaven. The nauseating flavor shot straight into my brain, making all my organs convulse. I drank with the iron will of a powerful minister. I drank with the love of a great father. Crash! I threw the empty basin onto the floor and panted, tears and mucus streaming down my face. I have finished it. Return and tell His Majesty that my condition has improved. I request permission to rest." Before I could finish, a violent cramp twisted through my lower abdomen. A rumbling noise thundered from my stomach. "Old traitor Chen. What else did you put in that medicine?" I cried, clutching my belly with bulging eyes. This official forgot to mention it. To unblock the body's channels and stimulate circulation, I added half a caddy of powdered croton. Imperial Physician Chen clasped his hands and smiled. "May the Chancellor recover swiftly." That dog emperor tricked me." I no longer cared about dignity or pretending to be half paralyzed. I sprang from the bed like a leopard whose tail had been set on fire and shot toward the privy faster than a galloping horse. Behind me, I heard Eunuch Cao clap enthusiastically. "His Majesty truly possesses divine foresight. A miracle! What a miracle!" 1 basin of life-restoring medicine, and the Chancellor, who was paralyzed on one side, can now outrun a horse. Men, quickly help young Master Su and the young lady pack their belongings. We will depart for the palace immediately. Inside the privy, I hugged my stomach and howled in utter despair. 4 hours later, I stood before the gates of the Chancellor's residence. My body was weak from excessive purging, my legs trembled, and I had to lean on the steward. My old eyes were full of tears as I mournfully watched the imperial carriage waiting outside. The rebellious Su Yan stood with folded arms. Beside him, more than a dozen servants struggled to load baggage onto 2 ox carts that would follow the carriage. Wiping my tears, I directed them. That goose-down pillow is soft. Put it on top. Tang Tang is accustomed to hugging it when she sleeps. Her bath towels must be made from the finest silk. Have all 30 boxes of snacks, pastries, preserves, and candied hawthorn been packed? And Tang Tang's golden duck-shaped chamber pot. Be careful not to scratch it. I am afraid she will not be accustomed to the palace latrines. Su Yan rubbed his forehead and snapped helplessly. Father, we are entering the palace to study and serve as companions, not fleeing the capital as refugees. The Crown Prince's palace is 10 times the size of our home. What could it possibly lack? Why are you making them carry the chamber pot? Shut up, I roared. What does that royal pig know about caring for a child? Things from our own home are best. Tang Tang wore a little red cloak trimmed with rabbit fur and looked like a moving ball of fluff. She ran over, stood on tiptoe, wrapped her arms around my leg, and raised her round face. Daddy, you must be good while you stay at home. Remember to drink lots of warm water. Tang Tang will bring back many delicious things from the palace for you. Don't cry, Daddy. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I knelt on one knee, pulled my little daughter into my arms, and gave her tearful instructions. Tang Tong, once you enter the palace, stay far away from that expressionless boy in yellow, and stay away from the old man with the beard who always chuckles. They are both bad people. If anyone bullies you, tell your brother to knock them unconscious first, then send word to Daddy. I will bring 10,000 troops and flatten the palace. Yes, Daddy, Tang Tang will remember. She obediently nodded and planted a kiss on my cheek. Su Yan took Tang Tang's hand, tipped his chin in farewell, and led her into the carriage. The wheels began to turn. The carriage rattled farther and farther away, carrying away the very life and soul of Su Dingfang. I stood like a stone statue and watched until it disappeared around the street corner, tears pouring down my face. That day, the Chancellor's residence sank into bleak silence. There was no more bright laughter or clear little voice calling, Daddy! No tiny figure toddled around the courtyard. No one demanded that I carry her over to pull the old steward's beard. I sat in the main hall, staring at my evening meal and my favorite bowl of pigeon soup, unable to swallow even one mouthful. My daughter had been gone for only an afternoon, yet time already seemed to stretch across an entire century. I began to hallucinate. I looked at a table leg and mistook it for Tang Tang's short little legs. I looked at the guard dog gnawing a bone in the courtyard, and imagined the crown prince baring his fangs as he devoured my tender white cabbage. No, I could not endure another moment. I slapped the table and sprang to my feet. It was true that I could not openly enter the royal classroom and interfere with the education of the imperial family. His Majesty had forbidden unrelated officials from approaching the crown prince's study area under the rule that those without business must stay away. But who was I? I was the chancellor of the dynasty and the craftiest old fox in the capital. If I could not walk openly through the front gate, I would use a side gate. I would climb a wall. I would dig a tunnel. Men! I shouted, my eyes blazing with battle spirit. Prepare a young eunuch's uniform, a vegetable farmer's clothes and black clothes for a nighttime raid for me. The following morning, I took out the eunuch uniform I had secretly ordered someone to prepare and slipped into a changing room. There was one enormous problem. I possessed a magnificent long beard, the symbol of my wisdom and authority. I would rather be killed than cut it off. So I wrapped the beard tightly in cloth, stuffed it beneath my collar, pulled the eunuch cap down to my eyebrows, and used stove soot to draw an enormous mole at the corner of my mouth. When I looked in the mirror, I was certain that even my wife of 20 years would slap me simply because my face begged to be struck. I blended into a group of junior eunuchs delivering afternoon tea to the royal classroom. With my head lowered and a tray in my hands, I crept step by step toward the classroom window. Inside, the grand tutor was droning through the classics. My rebellious Su Yan was frowning as he copied passages. And my precious Tang Tang, heavens above. She was sitting on a brocade-covered chair with her eyes nearly closed, her little head nodding like a chicken pecking grain. My heart ached so much that I almost cried. At home, my little cabbage would be enjoying her afternoon nap at this hour. Here, she was being forced to listen to those sleep-inducing classical maxims. Just as Tang Tang's little forehead was about to strike the hard wooden desk, a slender hand suddenly reached out. It was the Crown Prince. That brat Pei Yanling still wore a cold expression and kept his gaze on his book, but his hand landed beneath Tang Tang's forehead with perfect accuracy and surprising gentleness. Her chin settled into his palm and she smacked her lips as she slept soundly. The boy even shifted his body slightly to block the Grand Tutor's line of sight and conceal my daughter. Rage blazed inside me. "Take your pig's hoof away from my cabbage!" I screamed inwardly and wanted to charge in and bite him. My hands trembled from anger. The tea tray struck the windowsill with a loud clatter. The Grand Tutor stopped in alarm. The Crown Prince turned sharply, his icy gaze slicing toward the window. Suyan stared outside as well. His eyes met mine. He saw the soot mole and the huge bulge beneath my collar where I had hidden my beard. The corners of his mouth began twitching violently. Instead of raising an alarm, that rebellious son immediately lifted his book to cover his face. His shoulders shook as he struggled not to laugh. He would rather pretend to be blind than acknowledge this father. "Who is sneaking around out there?" the Crown Prince demanded coldly. Afraid of being exposed, I clutched the tea tray and ran for my life. The eunuch's uniform was too tight, forcing me to waddle like a duck. I dragged my aging body through 3 imperial gardens before finally losing the guards. My first attempt had failed, but my resolve only grew stronger. Learning from the experience, I realized that security around the royal classroom was too strict. In that case, I would attack through the imperial kitchen. I knew Tang Tang was a picky eater. Even if the palace offered every delicacy from land and sea, it would not necessarily suit her light tastes. I changed into a worn brown homespun outfit and put on a broad, ragged straw hat, disguising myself as a farmer delivering vegetables to the imperial kitchen. Across my shoulders I carried 2 large baskets filled with fresh white cabbages, the sacred symbol of fatherly love. Hidden beneath them was a box of candied hawthorn that I had personally asked the cooks at home to prepare especially for her. I successfully passed through the side gate. After reaching the imperial kitchen, I edged toward the area where snacks were prepared for the Crown Prince and his study companions. From a distance, I saw Tang Tang sitting on a swing in the small garden nearby. Beside her was none other than that royal pig, Pei Yanling. What happened next made me want to throw away the shoulder pole and charge forward to fight for my life. The Crown Prince was the future sovereign of a nation, a boy whose 10 fingers supposedly never touched ordinary work, yet he was diligently peeling shrimp. He was remarkably skilled. He removed every bit of the bright red shell, dipped the shrimp in sauce, and carefully brought it all the way to Tang Tang's mouth. Tang Tang opened her little mouth and ate it in one bite. Her cheeks puffed as she chewed, and her smiling eyes curved into crescents. "Brother Yanling peels shrimp best, even better than Daddy." Something cracked inside my skull. What? She said that pig peeled shrimp better than her father? And shrimp, of all things. Peeling shrimp for a girl was one of the most advanced courtship tricks used by those shameless playboys in the streets. Who had taught a 13-year-old brat such methods? I could endure no more. This old man could endure no more. Forgetting that I was supposed to be a farmer, I threw aside the shoulder pole, kept the straw hat on my head, and burst from behind a hibiscus bush. Pointing directly at the Crown Prince, I roared, "You rotten brat! Put down that shrimp! Do you think a few measly shrimp can buy the Su family's cabbage? Dream on!" The Crown Prince jumped and dropped the shrimp. Tang Tang stared blankly at the wild bearded beggar shouting in front of her. "An assassin! Seize that suspicious man disguised as a farmer!" Imperial guards swarmed from every direction like angry bees. I snapped out of my rage. Damn it, I had acted too impulsively. I turned and ran as though my life depended on it. The Imperial guards chased me with sabers for 3 full circuits around Tai Lake. Fortunately, I used the escape skills I had developed during the brawling days of my reckless youth. I dove underwater and breathed through a reed until they finally gave up. When I returned home, I developed a fever and remained bedridden for 2 days after catching a chill. But my love for my daughter continued to burn like an Olympic torch. I soon realized that acting during the day made discovery too easy, so I switched to a nighttime raid. I needed to see whether my daughter kicked off her blanket in her sleep or had been bitten by mosquitoes. That night, the moon was bright and the breeze cool. I put on a tight-fitting black outfit for a nighttime raid and covered my face with a black cloth, leaving only my gleaming eyes exposed. Using the pitiful stealth skills I had picked up from my guards, I climbed over the palace wall and slipped into the eastern palace. I climbed a huge old tree beside Tang Tang's bedroom window. From a high branch, I hooked both legs around the wood, lowered myself upside down, and swung like a giant bat while peering through the gap in the window. Blood rushed to my head until my face turned crimson and sparks danced before my eyes, but I forced myself to keep looking. Inside, the candlelight was dim. My Tang Tang slept soundly while hugging her goose-down pillow. Her tiny mouth hung slightly open, and every so often she smacked her lips. Oh, my angel. My heart nearly dissolved. I was sinking into perfect happiness and was about to hum a lullaby when the window opened with a creak. Still hanging upside down, I found myself face to face with two figures standing inside, one tall and one short. The taller wore a sleeping robe embroidered with brilliant golden dragons. The smaller wore one embroidered with coiled dragons. It was the old emperor and the young crown prince. Why were this father and son not asleep in the middle of the night? What were they doing in my daughter's room? 3 pairs of eyes stared at one another through the darkness. The silence was so complete that I could hear the faint rustle of paper. Then gravity pulled my face covering downward. My thick beard spilled free and pointed toward the sky, revealing Chancellor Su's entire face, flushed crimson from the blood rushing to his head. The emperor folded his arms. The corners of his mouth twitched so violently with suppressed laughter that even his beard trembled. Oh, beloved Minister Su, we heard that you were paralyzed on one side and had requested 3 months of medical leave. How did you come to master this profound art of hanging from a branch like an elderly bat? Is the bed in the Chancellor's residence uncomfortable? Do you prefer sleeping upside down in the palace so your blood circulates more freely? The crown prince, who had thrown on a small outer robe, stood beside him with an unchanged icy expression. His words, however, were sharp as blades. Imperial father, I have heard that a vicious bird has recently been prowling around the Eastern Palace to steal food. Shall I summon the archers and have them shoot down this fat bird? My blood boiled. The foremost minister of the dynasty was being humiliated, while hanging upside down like a strip of smoked meat. Pei Jianzhang, do not be so smug, I growled, keeping my voice low so I would not wake Tang Tang. You have hidden my cabbage here. I will fight both of you to the death. Get me down. In my agitation, my legs slipped from the branch. Thud. I fell freely and landed backside first in the chrysanthemum bed below, crying out in pain. Imperial guards immediately rushed forward and pinned the dynasty's foremost chancellor to the ground by the neck, as though catching a chicken thief. That night the emperor dragged me into his study and forced me to copy the sentence, "This chancellor must not climb trees to spy on others," 300 times. As I copied, tears of humiliation fell from my eyes. Watching the triumphant smile of that royal pig Pei Yanling as he poured tea for the emperor, I suddenly realized a horrifying truth. The boy was not innocent at all, peeling shrimp, catching Tang Tang's head when she slept. Every act had been part of a scheme. He was truly plotting to steal my cabbage's heart. In this battle I, Su Jingfang, would never coexist beneath the same sky as him. After my disastrous night as a failed human bat and the 300 lines of punishment, His Majesty confined me to my residence and cut off every path I had for climbing walls or boring through cracks. That sinister old Pei Jianzhang even sent 2 additional squads of imperial guards to stand outside my gates. Officially, they were protecting the chancellor while he recovered. In truth, they were placing me under house arrest so I could not storm the palace and disrupt his plan to raise a future wife for his son from childhood. Unable to enter the battlefield in person, I had no choice but to activate the greatest underground intelligence network in the capital, one I had spent 20 years building during my official career. I spent 30 ingots of gold bribing 10 eunuchs who swept fallen leaves in the Eastern Palace. 3 times each day, they passed news of Tang Tang to me through a dog hole in the rear courtyard wall. I was certain that with Pei Yanling's difficult temperament, icy disposition, and severe obsession with cleanliness, sooner or later my Tang Tang would come home crying. I only had to wait. Then I would take an 8-man sedan chair into the palace and bring my treasure back in triumph. But no. The first intelligence report nearly made me bite through my writing brush. Reporting to the chancellor, today the young lady ate 2 bowls of rice and 3 pieces of braised pork. His Highness the Crown Prince found the palace maid clumsy, personally removed every fishbone, and fed the meat to the young lady. When grease stained the corner of her mouth, His Highness wiped it away with the sleeve of his own robe and showed no disgust. A dragon-embroidered sleeve used as a napkin? Was that boy's brain waterlogged? That robe cost 10 times my monthly salary. He was clearly using self-sacrifice to appear attentive. I would not be deceived. On the second day, another report came through the dog hole. Reporting to the chancellor, the royal classroom reviewed previous lessons today. Young Master Su fell asleep, and the grand tutor struck his palm 3 times with a bamboo ruler. The young lady became frightened and burst into tears. His Highness the Crown Prince immediately drew his sword and cut the ruler in half. One glare frightened the Grand Tutor so badly that he requested 3 days of sick leave. His Highness then carried the young lady on his back around the imperial garden for 2 hours to comfort her. After reading it, I slapped the table and sprang up. Wait! My biological son, Su Yan, was the one who had been struck. Why had the Crown Prince not defended his study companion, but instead spent his time soothing the little girl who merely watched? And he carried her for 2 hours? Was his back some divine imperial palanquin? Was my cabbage meant for him to carry? On the 5th day, Su Yan was finally allowed to leave the palace for the holiday, on the 1st day of the lunar month, and return home. The moment he crossed the threshold, I lunged forward, seized his collar, and shook him as if rattling dice in a cup. Confess, what shameless tricks has that brat Pei Yanling played on your little sister? What kind of elder brother are you? How could you let him carry her all around the palace? Su Yan rolled his exhausted eyes, pushed my hands away, sat down, and leisurely poured himself a cup of tea. He looked visibly haggard, not because studying had exhausted him, but because he had been force-fed far too much dog food, watching those two act sweet together. Father, spare me, he sighed heavily. In the Eastern Palace, I suspect I was picked up from a rubbish heap, while Tang Tang is the real crown princess. No, I mean the Emperor's biological child. He took another sip. You know the Crown Prince is obsessed with cleanliness. If anyone else touches the corner of his robe, he has the garment burned. Yet yesterday, Tang Tang drooled in her sleep, soaking a large patch of the robe over his chest. Not only did he refuse to change, he sat as still as a statue for 4 hours because he was afraid she would wake. My mouth fell open and my eyes nearly dropped from their sockets. Su Yan pulled at his hair and continued with a grief-stricken face. That is not all. Tong Tong complained that she was bored. The Crown Prince ordered me to get on all fours and serve as a horse for her. I protested and asked why he did not become the horse himself. He drew his sword, held it against my neck, and said coldly, "This prince's back exists only to carry her. It is not meant to be ridden like a horse." Then he took off his outer robe and spread it over the ground as a carpet for Tang Tang to walk across. Listening to my own son complain, I felt no sympathy for him whatsoever. Instead, an alarm bell rang violently inside me. He was unmistakably behaving like a pint-sized boy already hopelessly devoted to his future wife. Pei Yanling was only 13. The peach fuzz above his lip had barely begun to grow, yet he already knew how to use his looks, gentleness, and indulgence to lure my 6-year-old daughter. He was conducting a brainwashing campaign, surrounding Tang Tang with sweets and power until she became accustomed to relying on him and could no longer leave him. "And Tang Tang?" I asked, in a trembling voice filled with terror. "Did she hit him? Did she cry and demand to come home to Daddy?" Su Yan looked at me with pity and delivered the fatal blow. Tang Tong sticks to the Crown Prince like glue. Whenever she opens her mouth, it is Brother Yanling. Even when she closes her eyes, she dreams of him. Yesterday morning she even told me, "Big brother, when you go home, ask Daddy to send more candy. Brother Yanling says Daddy makes the best candy." Tang Tang wants to feed Brother Yanling. Crack! A bolt of lightning seemed to descend from the 9th heaven and split my soul in two. What? Tang Tang wanted to feed Brother Yanling. Heaven and earth, I had raised that cabbage with blood and tears, watering it with my sweat and sorrow. Now it had not only grown legs, but was voluntarily rolling straight into the royal pigsty. Worse, it wanted to take its old father's property and use it to feed the pig. I could bear no more. Let them execute all 9 generations if they dare. "Men, bring me my official robes." I threw back my head and roared. "Today I, Su Dingfang, have recovered. I am entering the palace to destroy this source of disaster." I tore off my loose silk robe and put on the dignified purple robes of the chancellor. I placed my winged official hat on my head and borrowed the staff the old gatekeeper used to chase away dogs. "This time, anyone who tries to stop me will leave with broken legs." I stormed out. The 2 squads of imperial guards took one look at the murderous aura of the court's foremost minister and hurriedly moved aside without daring to utter a sound. I rode directly to the Eastern Palace. Along the way, eunuchs and palace maids saw the staff in my hands and scattered in terror. The great doors of the royal classroom were shut. Without wasting a word, I raised one foot and kicked them open with the strongest blow of my life. "Pei Yanling, you rotten brat, release my daughter at once." The doors flew apart and light flooded inside. What I saw rooted me, the mighty chancellor, to the floor and nearly made the staff fall from my hand. In the center of the grand and solemn study, a place meant for discussing the affairs of the state, Crown Prince Pei Yanling, the future sovereign of the dynasty, praised as ruthless, cold, and capable of killing without blinking, sat obediently on a wool carpet. His hair was a complete mess. It had been divided into dozens of tiny braids pointing in every direction, each tied with a pink ribbon. A yellow chrysanthemum was tucked behind one ear. His face remained as cold as ice, yet his hands were carefully peeling a grape. Using a tiny silver pick, he removed every seed and placed the fruit into Tang Tang's waiting mouth. My Tang Tang wore a red dress and sat proudly on his lap like a miniature empress. When she saw me, she cried happily, "Daddy, why are you here? Look! Brother Yanling is so good." He let Tang Tang braid his hair. I stared with my mouth open and pointed a shaking finger at Pei Yanling. You are the crown prince. Where is your dignity? Where is the honor of the imperial family? You let a child pull and braid your hair like that? Pei Yanling raised his narrow phoenix eyes toward me. Though more than a dozen pink bows covered his head, his imposing presence had not diminished at all. Calmly, he took out a handkerchief and wiped the grape juice from Tang Tang's mouth. Then he gently placed her on a cushioned chair beside him. He rose, straightened his robe, and brushed away an invisible speck of dust. The 13-year-old was already tall enough to reach my chin. He approached with steady steps. His eyes no longer held a child's innocence. They carried a resolve and determination as sharp as a newly honed sword. "Chancellor Su," Pei Yanling said in a low voice. "You asked where dignity lies. Here in the Easterns, Pan Tang Tang is this prince's dignity." I fell speechless, and my heart skipped a beat. What an enormous claim from a mere boy. He stopped 3 paces away and clasped his hands in the formal salute of a junior to an elder, a courtesy the crown prince was never required to offer a subject. "You fear that I will bring danger to her. You fear that this palace, full of plots, will swallow her. I understand." Pei Yanling looked directly into my eyes, each word hard as steel. "But Chancellor Su, listen carefully. Today I, Pei Yanling, swear on the honor of the future sovereign and on my own life. Whether now, 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, as long as I am here, neither scheming consorts nor blades raised in rebellion will be allowed to touch a single hair on Tang Tang's head." He paused. The corner of his mouth lifted into a smile that was sincere yet unmistakably possessive, like that of a young wolf. "Entrust her to me. I will give her more than just my chest to lean against. I will give her the entire realm as her playground. You can protect her for the first half of her life. Let me protect her for the rest." I stood frozen. An autumn breeze swept through the window and lifted the hem of my purple official robe. The staff fell from my hand and struck the wooden floor. The youth before me was only 13. Yet his eyes were more decisive and mature than those of countless grown men. But wait, his tongue was far too smooth. That old emperor must have taught him these lines and made him memorize them to deceive me. What could a 13-year-old know about love or promises for the rest of one's life? I came to my senses, clutched my head, and roared, "I will not listen. This old man hears nothing. Return my cabbage. You fraud. I am taking my daughter home." I charged forward to pick up Tang Tang, but Pei Yanling moved like lightning. He stepped back and spread both arms in front of her like a mother hen protecting a chick, refusing to yield even half a pace. I lunged like a hungry bear whose honeycomb had been stolen, and stretched out all 10 fingers to seize the crown prince. But although Pei Yanling was young, his agility was exceptional. With one arm he gathered Tang Tang securely against his chest, then glided away as lightly as the wind. In an instant he evaded my grasp and retreated behind a jade-carved screen. "Chancellor Su, forgive the offense," he said calmly, then leaped to the other side of the wooden table with my daughter in his arms. Smoke seemed to rise from the top of my head. Panting, I lifted the hem of my purple official robe and continued the chase. "Stand still, you brat. Stand still if you have any courage. You're using that agility against an old man? Give my daughter back." Thus, inside the solemn royal classroom where history and affairs of state were meant to be discussed, an absurd chase began, like an eagle swooping on a chick. A wild-bearded old chancellor chased a young prince in a ceremonial robe embroidered with a python motif around several massive pillars. And what was my rebellious Su Yan doing? He sat lazily on the windowsill with a plate of melon seeds, cracking them between his teeth while offering commentary. "Father, watch the incense burner. Your Highness, slow down or one of those pink bows will fall out." As for my precious Tang Tang, she was not frightened at all. Nestled safely in the crown prince's arms, she thought everyone was playing a game of chase. She clapped and laughed brightly. "Daddy, keep going. Brother Yanling, keep going. This is so much fun." This old father's heart was bleeding. My daughter, just as I pulled off one shoe to throw it as a concealed weapon, Eunuch Cao's long shrill announcement rang from outside. "As His Majesty has arrived." I stopped so abruptly that I nearly slammed my face into a vermilion wall. Pei Yanling stopped as well. He set Tang on the floor and straightened his clothes. Pei Jianzhang entered in an informal dragon-patterned robe, his hands clasped behind his back. He wore a deliberately dignified expression, but the corners of his mouth twitched so much that several layers of wrinkles gathered beside his eyes. Ahem. He cleared his throat and surveyed the chaotic battlefield. Beloved Minister Su, what inspired you to visit the Eastern Palace and dance with the Crown Prince today? I snorted. I did not even bother to salute. Instead, I threw my winged official hat onto the floor and pointed straight at the Emperor. Pei Jianzhang, stop pretending. Even imperial law must yield to local custom. You used a decree to coerce me, deceived me, and kidnapped my 6-year-old daughter into the palace. Everyone in the capital knows your dark intentions. Today, this old man will no longer serve as chancellor. I resign. Return my cabbage, and I will take her back to the countryside to herd ducks. I had brought out my final weapon, threatening to resign. Who else in the entire court could carry the mountain of memorials from the ministries of revenue and personnel? Without me, that old emperor would run himself ragged. Sure enough, the emperor's expression changed when he heard that I intended to resign. But he was an old fox who had cultivated for 1,000 years. He would not be frightened so easily. He came over, put an arm around my shoulders, pulled me into a corner, and lowered his voice coaxingly. Oh, beloved Minister Su, do not be angry. We are brothers who have faced life and death together. Have I treated you badly all these years? Look at my crown prince. He is handsome, accomplished in both civil and martial arts, and will one day become the supreme ruler. The fact that he has taken a liking to your Tang is a blessing accumulated over generations by the Chancellor's residence. A blessing, my foot, I argued at full volume. My daughter is only 6. 6. You let a 13-year-old boy surround her and buy her affection with candy and power until she cannot bear to leave him. What is that called? Deceiving a child. All right, all right. The emperor rubbed his temples and appeared to yield. I know you cannot bear to part with her. Let us negotiate. Even business requires bargaining, does it not? There is nothing to negotiate. I am taking Tang home. The emperor raised one eyebrow and pulled a roll of golden silk from his sleeve, waving it in front of me. Beloved minister, look carefully. This is an imperial marriage decree. If you insist on taking her away, I will issue it immediately and name Tang crown princess. Then she will lawfully belong to the imperial family, and even if you grow 10 mouths, you will not be able to argue against the law. I recoiled in shock. That shameless old man dared use imperial power to force a sale. Seeing me speechless, my eyes red and my lungs nearly exploding with rage, Pei Jianzhang patted my shoulder and finally threw me a lifeline. But I am a father as well, and I understand your heart. Let us divide the realm in half. I grant Tang special permission to spend 15 days of every month at the Chancellor's residence and the remaining 15 days studying in the palace. Is that not generous enough? 15 days? No matter how I calculated it, I was still losing. I had raised my daughter for 6 years, and now half my time with her was being cut away. Not enough, I said through clenched teeth. Who knows what that brat will put into Tang's head during those 15 days in the palace. The emperor sighed, gritted his teeth, and laid his final card on the table. Then I will sell you my son outright. During the 15 days Tang returns to the Chancellor's residence, the crown prince will go with her. Officially, the Chancellor will personally train the future sovereign in civil and martial disciplines. While he is in your residence, he is not the crown prince. He is your student and junior. You may strike him, punish him, make him hold a horse stance or copy texts. I will not interfere. I will even grant you an imperial sword that confers full authority. My ears twitched. Wait, that condition sounded extremely profitable. I would have the lawful right to torment the crown prince. I could beat him, make him kneel, and punish the brat who intended to root around my cabbage, and the emperor could not hold me accountable. This old father's eyes immediately lit up. I glanced toward Pei Yanling, who was gently feeding Tang another grape. Once that boy entered the territory of the Chancellor's residence, I would skin him alive. I cleared my throat, pretended to be reluctant, and clasped my hands. Since His Majesty has shown such sincerity, this old minister can only accept out of respect. Ahem. Remember, 15 days, and I have complete authority over his education. The word of a sovereign is never spoken in jest, the emperor said with a triumphant smile, visibly relieved. At last he had secured the perfect future daughter-in-law for his expressionless son. The two old foxes looked at one another, each believing he had made the better bargain. From the day we signed that agreement to divide Tang's time, my life entered a new chapter. I became both a loving father and a merciless demon. During the latter 15 days of every month, an imperial carriage brought all 3 children back to the chancellor's residence, and that was the time for my revenge. One morning on the residence's training ground, I held a rattan cane and smacked it against Pei Yanling's calves. Straighten your back. Your legs are shaking while you hold a horse stance. You are the crown prince. One day, you will carry the realm on your shoulders. If your legs are unsteady, how can you stand above 10,000 people? The boy wore a thin martial training outfit. Sweat covered him, and both legs trembled, but he gritted his teeth and endured without making a sound. His phoenix eyes remained stubbornly fixed ahead. Beside him, my own son Suyan was also holding a horse stance, looking as though he wanted to cry but had no tears left. Father, if you are jealous of the crown prince, punish him alone. Why drag me into it? My thighs are about to break. Silence. You are his study companion. If the crown prince suffers, you suffer with him. You still dare complain? I am adding another 2 hours, I roared. Just as I was happily tormenting these 2 young hopes of the nation, familiar pattering footsteps sounded from the corridor. Daddy! Big brother! Brother Yanling! Tongtang ran toward us in a pale jade dress, carrying a small tray with several bowls of chilled lotus seed and long and sweet soup. The instant they saw her, the 3 most powerful and formidable males in the dynasty threw away every shred of dignity. I tossed aside the rattan cane. In a single breath, my expression transformed from the king of hell into a merciful bodhisattva, and I hurried forward to take the tray. Oh, Daddy's treasure! Why did you come outside in this heat? Hurry into the shade. What if the sun darkens your white jade skin? Suyan immediately let his legs collapse. He rolled onto the ground and began moaning theatrically. Tangtong, look how cruel father is. He made your brother hold a horse stance until both legs broke. I want sweet soup. Feed me. But the fastest, most opportunistic, and most shameless of us all was Pei Yanling. A moment earlier, the brat had been stubborn and unyielding, firm as a pine or cypress. The instant Tangtang appeared, he staggered and collapsed to the ground. A faint sound of pain escaped him, and his eyes became weak and fragile, like a willow branch in an autumn wind. Brother Yanling. Tangtang immediately abandoned both me and Suyan and hurried to the crown prince. She pulled out her tiny handkerchief, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and blew gently on his calves. Did Daddy hit you very hard? Have some sweet soup. It will take away the bitterness. Tangtang will blow on it for you. Pei Yanling leaned his head against her shoulder. The corner of his mouth lifted into an extremely smug smile, and he secretly cast me a provocative glance. Then he obediently opened his mouth and accepted a spoonful of sweet soup from my cabbage. It does not hurt, he said softly. As long as Tangtang made it, I would drink it no matter how bitter it was. I clutched my chest. My blood pressure shot straight into the 9th heaven. There it was, a textbook green tea schemer, innocent on the surface but calculating underneath, wearing the guise of a crown prince. He dared use a pitiful act right before my eyes to steal my cabbage's affection. Pei Yanling, stand up. The punishment is not over. You are forbidden to play helpless, I roared and raised the cane. Tangtang instantly spread both arms in front of the crown prince. She glared at me with her large round eyes and pouted sweetly. Daddy is mean. You are not allowed to hit Brother Yanling anymore. If Daddy hits him, Tongtang will never give Daddy candied hawthorn again. My heart shattered. I looked at my beloved daughter doing everything she could to protect that boy. I saw the boundless tenderness in Pei Yanling's gaze as it rested on her. At last I sighed and lowered the cane. No matter how much I cursed him or exhausted him every day, deep inside I understood that the boy truly regarded Tangtang as his life. Beneath his ruthless royal exterior, he had reserved every bit of purity, gentleness, and protection he possessed for my daughter. Very well. Having a pig that knew how to protect the cabbage and shelter it from wind and rain at least proved that my judgment was not entirely poor. But accepting him was one matter. Tormenting him was another. If he wanted to take away my greatest treasure, he still had a great deal of suffering ahead. I cleared my throat, clasped my hands behind my back, stroked my beard, and assumed a dignified expression. Very well. For Tangtang's sake, horse dance practice ends here today. This afternoon, you 2 brats will report to the study and copy the duties of a husband. The conduct of a gentleman. 500 times, if you do not finish, neither of you will eat dinner. Watching Suyan's face turn pale and Pei Yanling smile bitterly, I threw back my head and laughed in triumph.